The story opens in a scene of complete devastation. The ground is strewn with the corpses of monstrous creatures, their grotesque forms scattered like discarded toys, bearing witness to a savage battle. In the midst of the carnage stands a young girl, tightly gripping a dagger that radiates a sinister, poisonous aura, an artifact born from a dark realm. She turns toward Qin Feng with a smirk that blends admiration and contempt. Standing over the body of a fallen behemoth, Qin Feng is barely conscious, drenched in blood and struggling to breathe. Every ragged breath serves as a painful reminder of the fierce battle he has just endured. His younger sister watches him with a cold gaze, acknowledging the enormity of his achievement. Despite his limited lifespan of only 100 years, he had survived the ruins of the ancient gods and defeated a horde of beasts. Yet she hasn't come to commend him. Her eyes gleam with something far more sinister as she makes clear her true purpose, which was to take the Eye of Judgment, the artifact he fought so hard to obtain. Through the blood-misted blur of his vision, Qin Feng meets her gaze. His heart pounds as fury churns inside him. With a voice trembling with pain and disbelief, he demands an explanation. The betrayal pierces deeper than any wound from battle. Her response is chillingly detached, her words slicing through the air without emotion. She denies their bond, asserting that he is not her brother, but merely an adopted child, and therefore owes him nothing. The weight of her rejection strikes him with brutal force, and the world around him seems to collapse. This girl, his sister in all but blood, the one he had protected and sacrificed everything for, now dismisses their shared past as meaningless. A blonde figure steps forward from behind her. His expression is calm, yet laced with mockery. This is Song Fei, someone Qin Feng had once trusted implicitly. Now, he reveals his betrayal with a smooth, taunting tone. He affirms that Qin Feng was never considered family, only a tool used to achieve their ends. The love Qin Feng had shown was merely a means to manipulate him into securing what they desired. With those words, the truth becomes unbearable. The dagger his sister now wields, the Soul Reaper, had been crafted with a single, cruel purpose: to drain his life force entirely. It was a masterstroke in a long-planned deception orchestrated by them from the beginning. The realization cuts deeper than any blade. Every sacrifice, every peril he faced for her sake, had all been part of their calculated game. Rage boils within him as memories rush back. The day their parents died, the promise he made to protect her. He had been her shield, her protector. Now, in this brutal moment, he sees it all reduced to a stepping stone for their dark ambitions. He recalls every trial they endured together, every battle he fought to keep her safe. Yet now she casts him aside, branding him a burden. Her voice, filled with resentment, breaks through his thoughts like a final wound. She accuses him of control, of manipulating her under the guise of protection. And now, she claims, she is finally free. Her final words dismiss him entirely. The statement, devoid of remorse, marks the end of everything he believed in. Qin Feng's body trembles with the mix of rage and disbelief. Before he can act on the fury rising within him, Song Fei attacks with precision. His sword strikes swiftly, severing Qin Feng's neck in one clean motion. The pain is immediate. Darkness overtakes him. In his final moments, Qin Feng reflects on the world he's leaving behind. A world transformed by the arrival of the Game of Gods in the year 2025. It was a game initially forgotten, later realized to be a system that altered the fabric of human existence. Life became a currency, and death a measurable cost. Monsters roamed the world, while those who endured gained supernatural powers at the expense of their lifespan. The strongest evolved into de facto gods. Qin Feng had ascended through the system, surviving countless trials, eventually reaching the ancient ruins and securing the Eye of Judgment. But the realization that his efforts were manipulated by those closest to him renders all his sacrifices meaningless. As consciousness fades, he forms a single, resolute thought. If granted another opportunity, he would no longer live for others. He would prioritize only himself. At that moment, Qin Feng awakens. He is in his bedroom, disoriented. Checking his phone, he sees the date, 2025, the day the Game of Gods began. The implications are immediate. He has returned to the past, 9 years before his death. The world remains unaware of the events to come, but Qin Feng is fully informed. He resolves not to repeat his past mistakes. Soon after, his younger sister, Xiaoyu, enters the room, visibly upset. She confronts him, demanding an explanation for ignoring her calls. Qin Feng remains silent, calmly drinking his coffee. Her outburst escalates, and she accuses him of causing Song Fei to drop in idol rankings due to financial neglect. Her words are emotionally charged, reflecting entitlement and misplaced anger. Qin Feng's composure breaks. He reacts physically, delivering a slap that momentarily stuns her. When she questions his action, he responds without emotion, stating he has no time for further conflict and warning her to remain silent. He then produces a golden credit card, the final remnant of their parents' estate, and throws it at her feet. He clarifies that he has never used the funds, but now relinquishes them entirely. He formally severs their familial relationship, declaring he no longer considers her his sister. Leaving the room, he ignores her sobs. Alone, he reflects on the sacrifices made in his previous life, choices guided by a need to protect her. This time, he decides to pursue his own path without restraint. Preparing to re-enter the Game of Gods, he regards the sleeping pills in his hand, a mechanism for game access. With no emotional ties remaining, he commits to a self-focused approach. Every lesson from his past life will now serve his personal advancement. His sister, and all others, will have to fend for themselves. Song Fei, the individual responsible for manipulating both him and his sister, will face consequences. Qin Feng resolves to eliminate him, holding him fully accountable. The narrative then shifts to Qin Feng standing in the Hall of Profession Selection, a significant point in the Game of Gods, where players choose their class. In his prior life, he chose the warrior class, driven by a protective instinct. Now, with no dependence, he selects based on efficiency, speed, mobility, and offensive capability. He approaches the selection mirror and initiates the process. A blue light surrounds him, and a system interface appears. It confirms that the Eye of Judgment, the artifact his sister stole from him in his last life, has already been bound to him. It seems the artifact identifies its master, even though it was stolen. The artifact activates automatically. A large mystical eye materializes behind him, emitting a powerful and omniscient aura. A system notification outlines the artifact's capabilities, Might of Judgment, and its passive ability, Might. Qin Feng reads the data carefully. A slight smile forms. He now has both knowledge and power. This time, he will proceed without hesitation or compromise. The power of the eye surged through Qin Feng, filling him with the sense that something monumental was unfolding. Perhaps the artifact had truly chosen him. Maybe its bond had survived his death and rebirth. He suspected the Eye of Judgment was what revived him, granting a second chance to alter his fate. Before he could dwell further, a dark aura seeped into his body. The system congratulated him. He had unlocked a hidden profession. The aura wrapped around him, and when it faded, his hair had turned ashen white, and an oppressive energy radiated from him. The system named his new class Shadow Deity, a rare and superior assassin path far beyond the warrior class he'd chosen in his past life. His fists clenched as he processed the revelation. The transformation felt inevitable, as if fate itself had guided him here. This power, this rebirth, it was more than chance, it was purpose. The system then revealed the passive effects of the Eye of Judgment, a primordial authority that bent the laws of reality. Though he lacked the divinity to wield its full power, even its dormant strength gave him an edge over others. Qin Feng no longer saw himself as a pawn. This time, the game was his to control. In his former life, humanity didn't discover the power of order until the 7th year of the Game of Gods, when a lone figure escaped the game world and reached the mythical land of order. Yet none had managed to claim the power for themselves. Now, he stood at the threshold of something far greater. He held the original authority, a force capable of overriding all rules. With it, he could reshape reality. Revenge alone no longer satisfied him. His path now aimed toward escaping the game, reaching the land of order, and claiming full divinity. Before he could fully reflect, the system prompted him to choose a code name. He considered the darkness of his new class and chose one fitting his rebirth, Shadow. The system accepted the name as a swirling aura gathered around him, marking the final step before entering the world known as Earth, abandoned by gods. The rules of this world were harsh. Tradable life could be earned by killing monsters, but death came at a steep cost. Half of all life lost with each fall. The stakes were absolute. Qin Feng appeared in Shelltown, the starting village. It offered fleeting safety. Monsters couldn't enter, and players couldn't fight each other. Around him, newly arrived players panicked, disoriented, many still trying to understand how they'd gotten here. He moved calmly, sharp-eyed. The strong would soon rise, individuals who would reshape the world. He needed to stay ahead of them all. His unique attire and dark aura drew attention. Whispers followed him. One assassin considered challenging him, but backed off immediately. At the town's edge, 4 players returned. 3 men and a woman, clearly defeated. Their lives had been halved, their bodies trembling. They had faced a mere level 1 creeper and barely survived. One complained about losing half his life to a single bite. Another could barely speak. The woman, clearly their leader, wielded a longbow, a rare choice. That alone marked her as someone with potential. She noticed Qin Feng and approached, suggesting an alliance. Her logic was simple. Monsters were too strong to handle alone. Qin Feng declined. He saw no value in teaming with those who had only experienced failure. Her group muttered, questioning his arrogance, but she wasn't convinced he was ordinary. Curious, she checked his status. The name Shadow appeared, and though she scoffed at first, a feeling lingered. He was hiding something. She told her team to follow him, determined to learn his secret, or at least to see him dead. Quietly, they slipped behind trees and buildings, trailing him from a distance as he headed into the wild. The woman watched him go, a bitter thought echoing in her mind. This world had truly been abandoned by gods. The blonde woman's team was shattered by their first encounter outside the newbie village. None of them understood why they'd been thrown into this nightmare. Even with experience, the monster they faced was beyond anything they could handle. It had torn through them mercilessly, leaving them shaken and desperate. Her two male companions eyed Qin Feng with a mix of awe and suspicion. One assassin noted the difference in his dagger. It was shorter, but radiated lethal intent. They watched his movements, faster and sharper than theirs. The woman saw his unusual attire and sensed he held secrets that could save them. Just as she signaled her team to close in, Qin Feng stopped, scanning the surroundings with uncanny precision. Suddenly, he vanished without a trace, leaving the group frozen in disbelief. The assassin guessed it was a stealth ability, but unlike any they'd seen, it was as if Qin Feng erased himself from existence. Realizing they couldn't follow, the woman ordered a retreat back to Shelltown to regroup. The system explained the skill he'd used, latent image, rendering him invisible, boosting the power of his next attack, and doubling stealth duration with mastery. His shadow class gave him a stealth edge no ordinary player possessed. The cooldown started immediately, letting him vanish repeatedly. Qin Feng dismissed the group behind him as naive. The starter town was a refuge for the weak, no shortcut to power. His focus was sharp: survive, dominate, claim the promised strength. His latent image faded as he spotted a level 1 creeper lurking nearby, the same monster that had crippled the blonde woman's team. It was grotesque, with fresh wounds from their failed attack. The creeper lunged, but Qin Feng moved with fluid grace, sidestepping effortlessly. Agility wasn't just for evasion, it was control. The creeper's hunger for lifespan was infamous. It devoured players to grow stronger. Qin Feng drew his short sword, dark energy crackling, and vanished again. The monster thrashed, confused, but he struck with lethal precision, his backstab dealing massive damage and finishing it instantly. He earned experience, a tradable and non-tradable lifespan, and unlocked the talent of infinite evolution. This ability gave him evolution points for solo kills, which he could use to upgrade skills daily. He quickly enhanced his shadow and backstab skills, extending stealth duration, increasing attack power, and boosting damage. With near-perpetual invisibility, Qin Feng had become a deadly predator. He recalled his past life struggles, where each fight was exhausting. Now, power came swiftly. As a reward for slaying the creeper, he received 3 days of life, increasing his lifespan to 54 years and 155 days. Also, a new skill called Authority of Judgment was given to him. This skill allows him to acquire new skills after defeating boss-level monsters and gaining evolution points. Qin Feng quickly tested it and upgraded the duration of his stealth ability. Suddenly, a muscular man named Gangzi appeared with a girl, boasting of his strength. He laughed off Qin Feng's solo kill and invited him to join, unaware of a massive spider lurking overhead, waiting to strike. Qin Feng was already in motion, instantly recognizing the creature before him. A nurse, a level 1 bronze rarity boss. Without a word, he activated latent image, vanishing into invisibility. The girl gasped, pointing to the spot where he had just stood. She wondered where he went, but Gangzi laughed arrogantly, dismissing Qin Feng's disappearance as fear. The massive nurse spider descended swiftly, followed by a smaller, but equally threatening baby spider. Both crashed down, crushing Gangzi and the girl beneath their immense weight. The system identified them clearly: the nurse boss, a level 1 bronze rarity, and its common baby spider minion. Hidden by invisibility, Qin Feng watched with cold detachment as the scene unfolded. The nurse's 1,600 health points were beyond any novice's reach, and its swarm guaranteed it could overwhelm even the toughest players. Yet for Qin Feng, this was the perfect chance to test his new skills. He struck without hesitation, breaking stealth and landing a powerful blow that dealt 338 damage. The nurse recoiled with a howl, blood spurting from its wound, and retaliated with a furious swipe. Qinfeng slipped beneath its legs just in time, narrowly avoiding the attack. Then, activating latent image again, he melted into the shadows like a ghost. A system notification confirmed his hit. The strike was impressive, but not enough to fell such a formidable foe. Almost immediately, a notification showed he'd taken 9 points of damage, a minor setback. With only 130 health points left, he knew a direct confrontation would be disastrous. Still, the surge of power from his upgraded strike exhilarated him. To deal over 300 damage in one hit was a thrill he'd never felt before. The nurse erupted into rage, thrashing wildly and striking blindly. Qinfeng observed carefully, knowing these creatures were not mindless. They adapted, retaliated, and learned quickly. The nurse's reckless attack made a frontal assault too risky. Meanwhile, the baby spider lurked nearby, alert and ready to pounce. Just as the nurse began to weave a web to escape, Qinfeng spotted an opening. He threw a rock at high speed, striking its abdomen and creating a gaping hole in its exoskeleton. The system acknowledged another hit, 209 damage this time. Smiling, Qinfeng mentally noted the advantage of combining his upgraded skills with the damage bonus from breaking stealth. Since thrown objects counted as legitimate attacks, he could chip away at the nurse safely. He threw another rock, feeling his confidence grow, as the system confirmed a 279 damage hit. Methodically, he weakened the nurse bit by bit. Soon, a loud announcement echoed throughout Shelltown, reaching every corner of the starter village. The leaderboard updated with a system declaration. A player named Shadow had slain the nurse, a bronze-ranked boss, and become the first player to reach level 2. The village buzzed with whispers. Players who had repeatedly failed against the nurse couldn't believe the feat. How could one player defeat such a powerful monster alone? Speculation swirled about Shadow's identity. Some suspected an exploit, others simply stared, stunned at the solitary name on the leaderboard. Among the onlookers was the blonde girl from before, her eyes wide with disbelief. Gangzi, too, was dumbfounded, struggling to fathom how anyone could defeat the nurse and its swarm solo. Then it hit him. The hooded figure they had dismissed earlier. Could that have been Shadow? Back in the game, Qinfeng received the system's confirmation of his victory. 300 experience points, level 2 reached, 2 evolution points earned, access to Shelltown's leaderboard, and 1 reputation point gained. The nurse's body disintegrated in a burst of energy, and the remaining spiders scattered in fear. He regretted not finishing off the smaller spiders for extra experience, but knew time was short. The system revealed his new rewards: 46 days of tradable life, a bronze-tier skill book called Hand of Avarice, a corrosion dagger that boosted attack by 35 points and agility by 4, and 2 more evolution points. Intrigued, Qinfeng examined the Hand of Avarice skill. Exclusive to assassins, it grants a 20% chance to extract extra loot from monster corpses, available to any player level 1 or above. His eyes widened. In his past life, a player known as the God of Sin had risen to prominence through this very skill, despite mediocre combat prowess, even gaining an exclusive bodyguard. A new thought struck Qinfeng. What if he combined the Hand of Avarice with his infinite evolution talent? The potential was staggering. He could increase both the chance of success and the amount of loot from each kill. The idea filled him with eager anticipation. Meanwhile, in the real world, students walked towards school. Xiaoyu moved with a friend who urged her to call him and apologize for skipping an important exam to support Song Fei. She refused coldly, blaming Qinfeng's interference for their missed opportunity. Inside the classroom, a crowd gathered around a boy's desk, watching in disbelief as his body faded, disappearing like mist. The boy's name is Jiang Wei, and panic spread as students whispered about others worldwide experiencing the same vanishing phenomenon. People falling asleep and never waking, their bodies turning translucent as if caught between worlds. One girl panicked, insisting she had to warn her parents and telling others to call their siblings. But Qinfeng's sister stubbornly refused to contact him. Her resentment was sharp. She blamed him entirely for the chaos and wished he'd never interfered. Her hatred was bitter and unyielding. Back in the game, Qinfeng focused on upgrading Hand of Avarice. The skill evolved to Gold tier, increasing the extra loot success rate to 70%. The system confirmed his mastery of the skill, granting 2 more evolution points and 46 more days of transferable life. He equipped the Corrosion Dagger, a bronze tier weapon that raised his attack power by 34 and agility by 4. Qinfeng grinned, knowing that when game skills and equipment crossed into reality, chaos would erupt. For now, he had time to prepare. Reaching level 10 and accumulating enough transferable life were essential goals. Killing normal monsters wouldn't suffice. He needed to hunt stronger bosses. His thoughts were interrupted by distant sounds of combat, clashing weapons and cries. Curious, he moved to the edge of a nearby cliff, ready for whatever came next. Peering down at the battle below, Qinfeng saw a group of players struggling against a level 2 bronze tier runner monster. The runner's speed overwhelmed them, dodging attacks with ease. He noticed a familiar face among the players, and it was Wang Meng. A smirk tugged at Qinfeng's lips. The rumors about Wang Meng were true. Wang Meng had assembled a team of 6, each hiding a secret profession. Wang Meng himself was a sacred shield warrior, boasting double the attributes of a normal warrior and an invincibility skill. As the fight raged, he activated a golden holy barrier to block the runner's strikes. A red-haired mage cast a powerful fireball, but it barely hurt the runner. Only 70 damage. She was a mage prophet, doubling spell damage and wielding a prophetic fireball. The archer, with doubled attributes and rapid fire skills, and the oracle priest, with enhanced healing, supported the team. Yet, the runner's speed was too much, and it shattered Wang Meng's barrier with a brutal blow. Frustrated, the archer lamented their inability to hit the runner. The priest healed steadily, while Wang Meng ordered the group to keep attacking, vowing to tank the hits. Qinfeng observed quietly, aware that prolonged fighting risked attracting trouble. His prediction came true when dark contaminator monsters appeared. Level 2 commoners covered in sludge and skilled in ranged attacks. Wang Meng's teammate's massive sword barely scratched them, doing only 33 damage. These monsters spewed sticky goo, immobilizing the players and reducing their speed to 0. One contaminator chased the red-haired mage, who called out for help. Without hesitation, Qinfeng vanished from his lookout. A moment later, the contaminator hunting the mage was decapitated by a single swift strike. The team froze in shock. Another contaminator fell, with a devastating 441 damage hit. The players scrambled, asking if anyone was helping them, but saw no one. Wang Meng quickly rallied his team, urging focus despite the unseen aid. Qinfeng, cloaked by latent image, silently watched from a nearby tree. With the contaminators defeated, only the runner remained. A system notification confirmed Qinfeng's victory over the contaminators awarding 40 experience points, 1 evolution point, and a new skill book. Poison Dart, a level 1 assassin skill. It dealt continuous poison damage over time, perfect for his mid to long range stealth style. He evolved the skill immediately to silver rank, increasing its range to 14 meters and damage to 120 on impact, with the poison effect causing 50% damage per second for 5 seconds and a 5-second cooldown. Back in the battle, the runner brutalized Wang Meng, tearing through his shield and flesh. Despite healing efforts, Wang Meng's wounds worsened. Desperate, he ordered a retreat. Before they could move, a high-speed projectile struck the runner's face, dealing 845 damage. The beast staggered, bleeding heavily. Wang Meng's team watched, stunned, as the runner's health plummeted. The runner released Wang Meng, who struggled to escape as the monster's health drained at 324 points per second, until it finally collapsed. A system screen appeared for Qin Feng, confirming he dealt over 90% of the runner's health and earned 600 experience points, leveling up to 3 with 2 evolution points and 55 days of transferable life. Qin Feng assessed the fight. The poison dart's continuous damage combined perfectly with his invisibility skill. Using stealth, he could rain poison darts endlessly, becoming unstoppable early and mid-game. Wang Meng, shaken, watched the runner's loot vanish before him, unable to identify his mysterious savior. He bowed in thanks, humble despite not knowing who had saved them. From the shadows, Qin Feng's voice warned him not to trust others so easily in the wild. Wang Meng nodded, promising to respect his privacy and offering help if needed. The team breathed a sigh of relief, while Qin Feng examined the loot orb in his hand. The Hand of Avarice skill had already yielded rich rewards. Wang Meng's connection to the Tao made him a valuable ally, but Qin Feng knew he needed a stable channel to sell excess gear and accumulate transferable life. He activated Hand of Avarice on the loot, gaining 3 evolution points and 55 more days of transferable life. Among the rewards was a bronze-tier item, running leather leggings. Equipping them would boost physical defense by 9, elemental resistances by 5, and cooldown speed by 15%, requiring only level 2, well within Qin Feng's reach. Qin Feng paused, surveying his overflowing inventory filled with gear from various classes. A remarkable haul by any standard. Once his backpack reached capacity, he planned to return to Shelltown and trade the excess equipment for more transferable life. His growth was far faster than in his past life, and a dark smirk formed. If this pace continued, Song Fei wouldn't know what hit him. The scene shifted to a desperate group battling contaminators and runner monsters, overwhelmed from all sides. One player urged retreat, but before they could flee, a towering monstrosity appeared, radiating menace. It launched a deadly attack, shooting body parts like arrows and instantly killing the players. In moments, they were wiped from the battlefield. They respawned in Shelltown, frustration boiling as they cursed their fate. Monsters came in relentless packs, and when weakened, fled intelligently. One player raised the urgent question: how could they leave the game if they couldn't even reach level 3? Another grimly confirmed that exit was only possible at level 3. A third warned that large groups attracted boss monsters. He recalled a chilling story of 40 players summoning a boss called the Damned, which wiped out 30 of them with a single, devastating skill. Elsewhere, the blonde girl and her team also respawned in Shelltown, fear and despair etched on their faces. If they couldn't reach level 3, they'd be trapped indefinitely. She theorized their consciousness alone was trapped in the game. and without escape, their real bodies would starve. Her teammates exchanged nervous glances. One assassin revealed they had died 3 times already, with less than 10 years of tradable life left. The girl cut him off firmly. Dying again was not an option. Suddenly, the Shelltown leaderboard appeared, revealing the mysterious shadow figure, Qin Feng, already at level 3. Wang Meng and Balala lingered at level 1. The blonde girl's mind raced. How was he leveling so fast? There had to be a secret. Determined, she ordered her team to spread the word. If Shadow Guy could help them reach level 3 and escape, she would pay him 10 million in cash once back in the real world. No one could refuse such an offer. Back in the game, Qin Feng effortlessly dispatched contaminators with poison darts. A system notification confirmed his kill, awarding 20 experience points and an evolution point. With enough points, he evolved Hand of Avarice, spending 5 points to upgrade it from Platinum to Jade tier. The skill now boosted loot acquisition success from 110% to 150%, with a 20% chance to increase loot rarity by 1 level. His eyes gleamed. A skill that raised loot rarity was priceless. If this continued, the skill could reach even higher levels, vastly improving his gains. Suddenly, a dark presence appeared in the distance. It was the Damned, the same bronze-level boss that had decimated dozens of players. Qin Feng's smirk deepened. The game was growing deadlier, but with every challenge, his power grew. The system identified the towering monstrosity. The Damned fed on glowing blue energy remnants of fallen players, evolving towards silver tier status. It had already consumed the souls of at least 40 victims. Qin Feng's mind sharpened with strategy. His inventory was full, unable to hold the loot from this fight. But the monster's slow evolution gave him time to return to Shelltown and offload unnecessary gear. He marked the location on his map, ready for the next move. He arrived at Shelltown, calm and composed, and displayed a collection of glowing orbs, the spoils of countless battles. Players stared, shocked and confused, some wondering when he had even arrived. Others were stunned by the 2 sets of bronze gear he carried casually, with more offered for sale. Realization dawned as they checked his username. Shadow, the legendary #1 player, yet his face remained hidden, protected by the game's hide face function. A woman stepped forward purposefully. A mage by her attire and physique, she asked how much the Ice Cone spell cost. Qin Feng named the price, 100 days of tradable life. He recognized her as Grey Rose, ranked 11th on Shelltown's leaderboard, also hiding her face. Doubt flickered in her eyes. She asked if the price could be lowered, but Qin Feng stood firm. Ice Cone was a core early game spell vital for quickly dispatching monsters, and even at that cost, it was a bargain. Her teammates quickly backed her up, explaining how they had reached level 2 thanks to Grey Rose's leadership. Acquiring ice cones would help them reach level 3 and escape faster. They could not afford to waste time. Without hesitation, Grey Rose told them to transfer their tradable life to her, promising reimbursement with real money once it's back in the real world. The transfer was completed, and Qin Feng's tradable life balance rose from 268 to 368 days. As Grey Rose turned to leave, the blonde girl from before approached Qin Feng with a smug smile. She claimed she had found him and made an offer. Help her reach level 3, and she would reward him with 10 million in cash upon return to reality. Nearby players gasped, stunned by the magnitude of the offer. The blonde girl's tone dripped with arrogance, as she insisted her father was the president of Zhang Industries, and that money was no object. Qin Feng remained unmoved. Internally, he recognized her as Zhang Li, a notorious figure from his past life, who had led a criminal syndicate that enslaved people through promises of cash, using their tradable life as leverage. Those who resisted met brutal ends. Without hesitation, Qin Feng rejected her offer with cold finality. Stunned by the refusal, Zhang Li's face twisted in disbelief. She snapped, warning that while he might be strong in the game, no one truly understood what was happening. She promised luxury beyond imagination, cars, houses, women, if he aligned with her. Qin Feng's reply was icy and firm. If she wasn't here to buy, she needed to leave. He knew cash was soon to be irrelevant. Tradable life was the true currency. Her rage erupted, calling him an ungrateful fool, and threatening that if this were the real world, she would put him in his place. Qin Feng's gaze darkened, voice cold as ice, warning that if she spoke another word, he would make her lose every last day of tradable life. He released a suffocating aura that sent shivers down the spines of those nearby. Zhang Li and her teammates recoiled in fear and scrambled to escape, leaving the remaining players stunned and silent. With the disturbance dealt with, Qin Feng resumed sales with unwavering focus. A system notification confirmed another successful transaction. A dim light tunic sold for 19 more days of tradable life, pushing his total to 546 days. Buyers marveled at their newfound power, but Qin Feng barely noticed. His mind had already shifted to the looming threat of the damned boss monster. He activated his elite shadow skill and vanished into the darkness. His thoughts sharpened. Players remained clueless about the true nature of tradable life. It held a hidden function that would soon shake reality's very foundation. They were trapped in the forgotten game, and it was only a matter of time before the world's order was overturned. The grim truth settled deep in Qin Feng's mind. Legacies, wealth, and power, all the things people once prized, would become meaningless. In this new world order, only one thing mattered: absolute strength. Those who failed to understand would be left behind, buried in the dust of an unchangeable reality. Meanwhile, the blonde girl and her team fled, breath ragged with exhaustion and fury. She swore vengeance, muttering darkly that once back in the real world, she would make Qin Feng pay. Her thoughts were interrupted by a man who introduced himself as Mao Lijun, or Lao Mao for short. Lao Mao, grinning with confidence, casually announced he was already level 2 and claimed he knew tricks to level up quickly. Though Shadow refused his offer, the wary blonde girl pressed for clarification. Lao Mao smirked and shared the secret, which was to allocate all points to agility. With maxed agility, movement speed outpaced most monsters, allowing one to win without taking damage. Her eyes widened at the realization. She had invested all her points into strength, foolishly believing brute force was the key to survival. The simplicity and effectiveness of agility struck her hard. With renewed determination, she agreed to Lao Mao's proposal, but offered 5 million in cash instead, citing Shadow's greater strength. Lao Mao accepted without hesitation. Even now, Shadow's strength was remarkable, and turning down that kind of money was surprising. But she was smart to come to him. He promised to get her to level 3, quickly. Meanwhile, in the game, Qin Feng arrived at the marked location, cloaked in stealth. From a distance, he observed the damned monster, now silver-ranked and shrouded in gray fog, clearly mid-evolution. Smirking, Qin Feng activated Poison Dart. The dart struck cleanly, dealing 659 damage, with the poison effect draining 219 health per second. Swiftly repositioning with latent image, he prepared for another strike. He estimated the silver-ranked monster's health to be 2 or 3 times higher than its bronze version. Just as he was about to act, the monster began gathering an immense magical force, swelling with power. Qin Feng analyzed the situation. 2 or 3 more darts might be enough. But the damned struck first, unleashing a devastating area of effect attack, raising the landscape. Qin Feng narrowly evaded the blast, his survival depending entirely on agility and positioning. This was no ordinary monster. It was a magic-based boss, with sweeping attacks that hit hard and wide. Tracking the monster invisibly, he watched his cooldown timer. Hidden Shadow was still unavailable. Patience would be the key. As the monster charged again, Qin Feng remained calm. At the first sign of weakness, he pounced, unleashing another poison dart. Another 659 damage. Poison took hold again. The monster, sensing its end, fled. But Qin Feng gave no mercy. Silent and deadly, he followed, cold calculation in his eyes. The creature's struggle was futile. Reappearing above it in a flash, he drove the beast into the ground. A system notification confirmed the kill. The damned had fallen. Another silver-ranked boss slain. A flood of rewards followed. Qin Feng leveled from 3 to 5 instantly, gained 4 evolution points, and collected 124 days of tradable life. The sheer scale of the rewards made him laugh. A single kill had accelerated his progress dramatically. He activated the evolved Hand of Avarice as the monster's body disintegrated into loot. The system reported even more. Another 4 evolution points, and an additional 124 days of life, bringing his total to 546. 12 evolution points, and 372 life days. An unbelievable haul. Then, the bonus effect of Hand of Avarice triggered, upgrading one of the looted items to gold rarity. A gold teardrop. No wonder the skill was Jade level. It could enhance gear beyond its original rank. 7 or 8 items had dropped, but his backpack had only 10 open slots. The lack of a storage ring was frustrating. Efficiency would suffer if he had to return every time he fought a boss. Just as he focused on one particular item, the scene shifted to Shell Town. A mage from Wang Meng's team materialized in a flash of light, relieved to have returned. Her team followed, each expressing gratitude. Wang Meng's leadership had brought them back safely, and to level 3. Still, the mage regretted not befriending the mysterious player who saved them. Mud-covered and unnoticed, she blamed her appearance. Now clean and dressed well, her teammates teased that she'd have better luck next time. Laughter was short-lived, as a town-wide announcement stunned the players. Shadow had reached level 5. Shock rippled through the crowd. Just minutes earlier, he had been seen selling gear. Now, he has leapt 2 levels. Confusion and awe turned into wild speculation. One desperate voice cried out, offering his sister in hopes of winning Shadow's favor. In Wang Meng's camp, celebration turned to anxiety. Shadow had surpassed them in a blink. But Wang Meng remained level-headed. He reminded his team they needed to log out, return to the real world, and warn their families. As logout began, his final words were grave. If the world was plunging into chaos, they had to prepare those they loved. In reality, Wang Meng awoke abruptly. Officers nearby rushed to him, shaken. His body had started turning transparent while unconscious. Now the truth was undeniable. Death in the game equated to real-world erasure. There was no time to mourn the revelation. Wang Meng rose quickly, calling for an emergency meeting. At the station he was questioned. His team, all with hidden professions, had nearly been wiped out by one monster, saved only by Shadow. He explained Shadow's meteoric rise, level 3 at their encounter, level 5 now. The speed was unprecedented. One officer speculated, could Shadow be the world's strongest player? The question hung heavy. Someone else noted a strange inconsistency. Shadow hadn't logged out. Perhaps he had no one in the real world. A female officer, bold and unfiltered, posed the theory. What if Shadow was a transmigrator? One of those fabled individuals from another world, rising with unnatural speed. Her suggestion drew a sharp reprimand. But more troubling news followed. Classified reports showed a pattern. Many elderly were dying in their sleep. The data revealed those deaths aligned with players who had died repeatedly in the game. The correlation was chilling. Death in-game erased players from existence. Not just game over, true oblivion. The officers understood the stakes. The forgotten game of the gods wasn't just a virtual world. It was a portal to another dimension. A possible invasion. The government was mobilizing. Every officer would now form a vanguard team to enter the game and gather intelligence. Team assignments were swift. Anyu, the female officer, was made captain of Team 1. Wang Meng was named vice captain. Their mission was to uncover Shadow's true identity and form an alliance. His existence could change the tide of this unfolding crisis. Anyu, with her encyclopedic knowledge of games and fiction, was deemed the perfect candidate to approach Shadow. He wasn't hostile, just enigmatic. If they succeeded in befriending him, humanity would gain a powerful ally. As the officers received their orders, the meeting concluded with heavy urgency. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the city. The world had changed, and only a few understood the gravity of what was coming. The next day, in a high school classroom, Qinfeng's younger sister sat lost in thought. Around her, classmates buzzed with excitement about recent game events. Someone mentioned that players transported, at the same time, ended up in the same starter village. She scowled at her phone. Her brother hadn't messaged. No apology. No concern. It wasn't like him. Frustration simmered, then shifted. She thought of Song Fei, the idol she'd seen the night before. It was magical. Once the game consumed the world, there might not be another concert. Dreamily, she imagined meeting him in the game. Could fate bring them together? Excitement swelled in her chest. Determined to make the most of her time in the game, she messaged Jiang Wei for tips. His response came swiftly. She had come to the right person. The key, he said, was to invest everything into agility, essential for survival and speed. Even for mages, it boosted casting time. If she struggled, she only needed to wait until teleportation formations activated, linking villages. Once that happened, he'd find her. Lying back, she smiled smugly. Simps like him were useful. With his help, she would surpass her brother. Let him struggle. No help from her. The scene shifted once more. Qinfeng stood before the spoils of his kill. Among the loot, a glowing orb caught his attention. A system prompt revealed the item. The Cursed Ring, a gold-tier accessory. It granted +8 to all attributes, plus 26 dark resistance, and multiplied weak point attacks 15-fold. Also, the level requirement was level 4. Qinfeng analyzed quickly. 32 attribute points, a bonus equal to 3 levels. The ring was a rare treasure, and it was his. The number of slashes also increased from 3 to 5, striking all enemies within a widened 3.1 meter path. The cooldown was reduced from 12 seconds to 10.43 seconds, making the skill more efficient. Most notably, Each strike now dealt 200 damage, double its previous potency, and every attack was guaranteed to count as a backstab, activating the backstab skill effect. Though it still could not target weak points, the upgrade was a game changer. Qin Feng acknowledged that while the cooldown had not been drastically reduced, the ability to maintain continuous invisibility and deal high damage would give him a huge advantage in battle. His attention turned to the remaining loot. Most of it was worthless junk, but one item caught his eye: a silver tier warrior skill book titled Battle Cry. Recognizing its value, he knew selling it would grant him additional tradable lifespan. Before he could act further, a sudden movement caught his attention. Turning swiftly, he spotted 3 massive creatures charging toward him. Level 4 limb crawlers, grotesque and predatory. Rather than feeling threatened, Qin Feng saw this as the perfect opportunity to test his newly upgraded skills. Without hesitation, he activated Instant Shadow Slash. In an instant, his form blurred, and he unleashed a barrage of high-speed slashes, cutting through the creatures with effortless precision. The limb crawlers did not even have time to react before they were shredded into pieces. As the dust settled around him, a system notification materialized, confirming the defeat of the enemies. His victory was secured. 80 experience points and an additional 5 days of tradable lifespan were awarded. Standing amidst the aftermath, Qin Feng radiated a dark, menacing aura, his mind already processing the efficiency with which he had dispatched his enemies. His combat skills were growing at an exponential rate. Internally, he marveled at how far his power had come. If I combine my poison dart with instant shadow slash, I could win before the battle even begins, he mused. His mind raced with possibilities. But first, he checked his current tradable lifespan. A quick glance confirmed it: 618 days. Still, it was not enough to bridge the gap between the game and reality. He needed a minimum of 900 days, around 2.5 years worth of tradable lifespan. With that in mind, he quickly devised his next course of action. Step 1. Sell everything valuable in his inventory. If all went according to plan, he could reach the required lifespan sooner than expected. Once he hit level 10, he would finally have access to the power he sought, unlocking the gateway between the virtual and real worlds. Shifting focus, Qin Feng made his way back to the shell town, moving silently through the streets with his latent image skill active, shrouding him in invisibility. As he passed unnoticed, he overheard a conversation that caught his attention. A man's voice drifted to him, congratulating a woman on reaching level 3. He turned his gaze toward the sound, recognizing the voices of the blonde girl from earlier and Lao Mao. Their conversation revealed the terms of a previous agreement. Lao Mao had promised to help her reach level 3 in exchange for 5 million in cash. Now that she had achieved her goal, he expected payment. The blonde girl, smooth in tone but edged with pride, assured him that her father's company, Zhang Industry, could easily afford such an amount. She would handle the transaction in the real world after logging out, handing Lao Mao her phone number as confirmation. Then came an unexpected proposal, one that caught Qin Feng's attention. She offered to buy all of Lao Mao's tradable lifespan, her tone calm and businesslike. 10,000 in cash for each day's worth. Lao Mao grinned, clearly pleased with the offer. With a smug expression, he accepted, mentally scoffing at Qin Feng for foolishly rejecting such a profitable deal. They agreed to continue the discussion once they met in the real world. Unnoticed, Qin Feng moved silently between them, hidden in plain sight. Lao Mao, unaware of his presence, scoffed inwardly, viewing tradable lifespan as nothing more than a tool to farm in-game currency, a stepping stone to amassing wealth beyond the game's boundaries. To him, that was the ultimate strategy, and he considered himself a genius for realizing it. The scene then shifted to Shell Town, where Qin Feng stood before the teleportation gate. A simple stretch of his hand, and the gate pulsed with radiant blue energy. As the light intensified, a system window materialized before him, congratulating him on successfully activating the teleportation formation in Shell Town and awarding him 1 reputation point. The system explained the mechanics. He could use the teleportation gate once per day for free, but subsequent uses would consume tradable lifespan. However, for now, the gate was practically useless as no other teleportation gates in the game had been activated. For the system to function properly, a player from another starter town had to reach level 5 and activate their own teleportation gate. Qin Feng mused over this, understanding that the teleportation formation was a two-way system. Activating just one side held no value. He remembered that in his past life, Song Fei had been in Firefly Town. To stay ahead, Qin Feng set up an altar near the gate that would immediately notify him the moment someone activated the Firefly Town teleportation gate. He was not just waiting, he was preparing. The moment that gate lit up, he would be ready to take advantage of the unskippable fade with Song Fei. As he ventured deeper into the city, his mind was already fixated on his ultimate goal. Teleportation between towns might seem significant to most players, but the real challenge lay ahead. His true objective is to reach level 10 and access the God's abandoned realm. Only then will the true God-forsaken game begin. A short while later, he set up shop in the town square, and a system notification hovered above him, announcing his presence. Selling equipment and skills, 10 seconds only, first come, first served. The response was immediate. Players rushed toward him in excitement, calling him an expert. Some eagerly declared that they had saved up tradable lifespan for this moment. One player, proud of his accumulated 150 days, boasted about how he had been waiting for this opportunity. Another player remembered that the last time Qin Feng had set up shop, he sold an icicle spell, a purchase that had propelled Gray to second place in the rankings. One player quickly revealed that he had found a silver tier skill book called Battle Cry, a warrior-exclusive ability, and without hesitation decided to purchase it. A system notification confirmed that the skill book had been sold for a staggering 4 days of tradable lifespan. The surrounding players were stunned. One questioned whether a single skill book was really worth such a high price, but another scoffed that they clearly don't get it. Battlecry boosts a warrior's efficiency in farming monsters. With that skill, one can easily recover 300 days of tradable lifespan in less than 2 days. It's a steal. Realizing the value of the transaction, the remaining players rushed forward in a desperate frenzy, eager to snatch up any remaining loot before it was all gone. In a matter of seconds, everything had sold out. The air was thick with tension and excitement as Qin Feng glanced at his system window, assessing the results of his sales. In just 1 minute, he had amassed 650 days' worth of tradable lifespan, bringing his total to a staggering 2,174 days. Yet, even with this impressive total, he remained unsatisfied. To truly bring his attributes, skills, and equipment into reality, he needed far more lifespan. Meanwhile, some of the players groaned in frustration, lamenting their missed opportunity. One of them asked if he would be setting up shop here again. Qin Feng confirmed with a nod, assuring them that he would return soon. Just as he was about to move on, a female player's voice rang out. cutting through the murmurs of disappointment. She called him and showed him a treasure, asking if he would be interested in a deal. Curious, Qinfeng turned to face her. His eyes narrowed slightly as recognition hit him. She was one of Wang Meng's teammates. The system promptly confirmed the treasure to be a space ring with 12 inventory slots. The system went on to explain that the ring did not take up the player's backpack or equipment slot. Qinfeng stood stunned for a moment. He inwardly recognized the space ring's true value. A rare item like this, one that did not take up a backpack slot, was practically priceless. Players could only carry a maximum of 3 storage backpacks, making such an item invaluable. The fact that this girl with her profit profession had obtained it so early in the game was nothing short of extraordinary. Her luck was off the charts. Without hesitation, he asked her the price. In his past life, a 12-slot space ring like this one had been sold for an astronomical 3,600 days of tradable lifespan. However, instead of asking for lifespan, the girl made an unexpected offer. She asked to be added as a friend and form a party with her to take down a boss monster. Qinfeng did not hesitate for long and accepted her condition. With a quick swipe of his hand, a system notification confirmed that Big Plum had accepted his friend request. As they began to leave the starter town, Qinfeng turned to Plum and asked about the boss monster she needed help with. She explained that it was a gold-tier boss, though she had not caught its name as it had been too far away. However, she did describe its location: a tattered boat floating in the swamp. Qinfeng's eyes widened in shock. Could it be the Golden Ghost ship? His mind raced, quickly recalling that the Golden Ghost ship was a rare special boss that could appear at any level. Its spawn rate was exceptionally low, and when it did appear, it triggered fierce battles between major guilds, all vying for the powerful loot it dropped. The mere sighting of this boss had once been enough to incite a bloodbath between players. However, from Plum's description, he deduced that this particular Golden Ghost ship was likely around level 5, making it the easiest version of the boss to defeat. Still, the question lingered. How did Plum stumble upon such a rare boss so close to the starter town? A realization struck him as he pieced together the circumstances. The space ring, her connection to Wang Meng's party, and the appearance of a gold-tier boss so close to the starter town. It was too much to ignore. Could Plum be the rumored Golden Carp from his past life? He remembered the whispers about a mysterious member of Wang Meng's party, blessed with absurd luck. This player could randomly encounter rare bosses, treasure chests, underground palaces, and even ancient temples simply by wandering around. Back then, he had dismissed those rumors as misinformation, a smokescreen to cover up their true intelligence. But now, standing before him, Plum was the living embodiment of those whispers. Lost in thought, Qinfeng stared at Plum, trying to process the implications of this encounter. Noticing his gaze, Plum blushed, suddenly self-conscious. She asked with her voice tinged with uncertainty why he was staring at her. Immediately snapping out of his thoughts, Qinfeng quickly reassured her that it was nothing, before refocusing on their journey. As they passed through the main gate of the starter town, unbeknownst to them, a figure lurked in the shadows. A bald player had been watching their every move, carefully tracking them. The scene shifted to another part of town, where a group of rough-looking players had gathered. A long-haired man stood before a squad of bald players, speaking with commanding confidence. He recounted past glories, claiming leadership over the conquest of Sand City's overlord. Promising prosperity to those who followed him, he spoke as though victory was guaranteed. His speech was interrupted when one of the bald players, the one tasked with monitoring Qinfeng, returned in haste, panting from exertion. The report was swift. Qin Feng had left town with a girl. A sly grin spread across the leader's face. He scoffed at the news, dismissing Qin Feng as another naive youth, easily led astray by a pretty face. With a sneer, he gave the command to mobilize. It was time to strike. Meanwhile, Qin Feng and Plum continued on their journey. Qin Feng laid out the terms of their arrangement with clarity. Any equipment or skill books the boss dropped that Plum could use would be hers. Everything else would belong to him. Plum hesitated, weighing the offer carefully. She asked about the other members of Wang Meng's party. What would they gain from this arrangement? Qin Feng's reply was blunt. With the group composed of diverse professions, there was no assurance an assassin's loot would drop. In such a case, his efforts would yield nothing, a scenario he deemed unfair. Plum accepted the terms but requested that, if gear useful to Wang Meng or her allies dropped, Qin Feng offered it to her at a discounted price. He agreed without hesitation. With their deal finalized, Plum mentioned they would proceed to the boss once her teammates logged back into the game. But as they walked, unease began to settle in her chest. She asked where they were headed. Qin Feng finally revealed their target, a gold-tier boss. The words stunned her. Taking on a gold-tier boss with just the two of them seemed suicidal. Qin Feng was an assassin, and she was a mage. While she could turn invisible, she lacked the durability to withstand such a powerful foe. Doubt clouded her face, but Qin Feng remained composed. He assured her she would not fight. Her role was to remain safely at a distance and observe. He would handle everything. Plum stared at him, shocked. His strength was undeniable, but the idea of him soloing a gold-tier boss defied everything she knew about the game. Before she could voice her disbelief, Qin Feng stopped abruptly. A subtle change in the air caught his attention. Without a word, he activated his latent image skill and vanished instantly, leaving Plum wide-eyed and speechless. Frozen in place, her heart pounded as she struggled to make sense of what had just happened. Qin Feng had been right beside her moments ago. Now, there was only silence and the unsettling emptiness of the path ahead. Confusion crept across her face. She called out his name, her voice lost in the stillness. No answer came. Only the wild hush of the wilderness responded, growing heavier with every heartbeat. Unseen, a pair of glowing eyes watched from the shadows, monitoring their every move. The game was changing. Back in the distance, the leader scoffed with cruel satisfaction. He waved off any concerns, his arrogance oozing with each movement. He believed he had deceived her, leaving her vulnerable and alone. A sinister smile twisted his features as he ordered his men to capture her first. But just as they closed in, the atmosphere shifted. A shadow emerged from the darkness ahead, a wisp of night seemingly materializing from nowhere. The leader froze, his grin faltering and heart skipping a beat. His eyes widened, staring into the swirling dark aura looming before him. Before he could react, Qin Feng struck. In an instant, shadows enveloped the group, swift and merciless. The outcome was sealed before they even realized what was happening. A cold metallic gleam sliced through the air, and bodies fell one by one, torn apart before screams could escape. Within seconds, the once confident group lay lifeless and broken on the ground, their blood staining the earth beneath them. Qin Feng, as if stepping back into the void from which he came, melted into the shadows again, vanishing without a trace, leaving only carnage behind. A system notification flashed before him, coldly confirming the grim tally. 5 players eliminated, 12 days of tradable lifespan earned. He glanced down at the bodies, his expression unchanged. Their loot was pathetic, not worth a second thought. Killing them was no different from slaying two low-level monsters. Without a trace of remorse, Qin Feng reappeared beside Plum, his face as indifferent as ever. Plum, still unaware of what had transpired, turned to him, confusion creasing her brow. She asked what had happened, how he had disappeared so suddenly, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. Qin Feng shrugged, offering a half-hearted explanation. A few people had been following them, he said dismissively. He sent them back to town. Plum seemed satisfied for a moment, but then her curiosity flared. She peppered him with questions, teasing that with his invisibility skill, he could probably do anything unseen, even the most mundane actions. Qin Feng cut her off sharply, his patience thin. He told her to focus. They needed to reach the gold-tier boss monster, and were wasting time. The scene shifted to the starter town, where Qin Feng's younger sister had just entered the game, after choosing her profession. The magic staff in her hand revealed she had become a mage. Her eyes widened in wonder as she took in the bustling town, the virtual world more vivid than she had ever imagined. Nearby players chatted about her arrival, but she barely noticed. Her gaze fixed on her staff as she proudly revealed to a nearby player that she had obtained a hidden profession, sacrifice. She mused aloud, excited by the power of a hidden class. It was strong enough to help Song Fei, perhaps even more. Her thoughts turned to her brother, Qin Feng, wondering if he had entered the game yet, or if he knew about the hidden starting point Zhang Wei had mentioned. Annoyance flickered across her face. She muttered under her breath, frustrated by his absence whenever it truly mattered, though he always acted like he cared. Quickly shaking off the irritation, she convinced herself that with her hidden class and Zhen Wei's promise to help her level up, she didn't need him. If anything, Qin Feng needed to fend for himself. Her eyes shifted to the leaderboard in town, freezing at the sight that Shadow had already reached level 6. A flicker of determination sparked within her. Meanwhile, Zhang Wei, who had been boasting about his strength, was still stuck at level 3. Clearly, the real expert was Shadow, the mysterious player atop the leaderboard. Ambition surged in her chest. If she could stick with Shadow, she would level up faster than relying on Zhang Wei. The only question now was where to find him. Nearby, Wang Meng and his team were dealing with their own problems. Wang Meng cursed under his breath, growing impatient. One of his team members had disappeared. He grumbled that he couldn't reach him, scanning his team and demanding a plan. One teammate voiced concern that without a healer, fighting mobs would be nearly impossible. Another added with frustration that unlike Shadow, they couldn't farm solo without backup. They weren't invincible. Agreement rippled through the group, while their leader remained silent, his mind racing for a solution. Someone suggested recruiting another healer to fill the gap. The conversation stalled, waiting for action. Qin Feng's younger sister, eavesdropping, saw her chance. With a confident smile and purposeful steps, she approached Wang Ming's team. She casually asked if they needed a healer, a mischievous smirk tugging at her lips as she declared her hidden class, life sacrifice, with unshakable certainty. Her eyes gleamed with ambition as she took in their stunned expressions, knowing her offer would shake up the team dynamic. The scene shifted back to Qin Feng, who had arrived at a cliff with Plum. Below, hidden in thick mist, lay the target they had been seeking, the Golden Ghost ship boss. Tension hung heavy in the air. Qin Feng's suspicions were confirmed. The Golden Ghost ship was no illusion. It was real, waiting. Without hesitation, he activated his latent image skill, vanishing completely into invisibility. He instructed Plum to stay hidden and watch for ambushes. He intended to settle an old grudge with this golden tier menace. Plum nodded, moving gracefully and landing silently in the swamp below, her eyes scanning for other players. As Qinfeng touched solid ground, a system notification warned that the area around the Golden Ghost ship was a violent domain. The message detailed that lifespan depletion here was 100 times faster than normal. He quickly calculated the risk, which was that 15 minutes in this zone would cost an entire day's lifespan. Unshaken, Qinfeng knew he had faced violent domains before. They were dangerous, but not enough to stop him. Not today. The system then identified the boss, Golden Ghost Ship, Level 5, with a countdown of 45 minutes and 25 seconds until it vanished. More than enough time, he thought. Without hesitation, he launched his first attack. The instant shadow skill streaked forward in a blur, striking the boss and dealing 549 damage 3 times over. The ship groaned as its health bar took a heavy hit. Not satisfied, Qinfeng followed with a well-aimed poison dart, targeting the eerie green glow bells on the ghost ship's boat. With his stealth attack bonus, the dart landed perfectly, delivering catastrophic impact. The poison dealt 621 damage, and a critical strike notification flashed across the screen. The Golden Ghost ship shuddered under the assault. Qinfeng's eyes locked onto the boss, knowing this was just the beginning. As the poison took hold, a surge of system notifications registered an additional 207 damage per second for 5 seconds. The ship was not about to take this punishment quietly. It roared to life, its engines whirring, ready to retaliate. Qinfeng wasn't surprised. He had studied this boss long enough to know that striking its weak point would trigger a violent response, controlling the surrounding water to unleash a devastating area attack. Then, towering pillars of water erupted from the swamp, crashing down in all directions like massive tidal waves. The deafening sound and heavy pressure made every breath feel labored. Qinfeng's sharp eyes scanned the battlefield, noting these water pillars were no mere spectacle. If not for his exceptional agility, granted by his shadow class, dodging the attack would have been impossible. The towering water columns slammed down all around him, but he moved with inhuman speed, narrowly avoiding each strike with graceful precision. With the battlefield plunged into chaos, the real fight had begun. The Golden Ghost ship monster began to concentrate, and within moments, grotesque decayed hands clawed their way out of the murky swamp. Skeletal figures emerged one by one, their faces frozen in terrifying grimaces. Qinfeng watched calmly, noting that once the boss finished its area attack, it would summon 12 decaying water ghosts. Each creature possessed the strength of a silver tier monster, and now blocked every escape route. This was the point where most adventuring parties would panic, but the fight was far from over. The Golden Ghost ship did not stop at summoning a dozen horrors. Every 3 minutes, it would conjure more. If left unchecked, their numbers would overwhelm the battlefield and wipe out the entire party. Survival depended on taking them down before they multiplied. Fortunately, Qinfeng had been invisible from the start. The summoned ghosts could not detect him and stood no chance. He positioned himself perfectly and unleashed his instant shadow slash, a blur of deadly precision. The attack was so swift, the decaying water ghosts barely had time to react, and within seconds, every last one was obliterated, their bodies evaporating into nothingness as shadows consumed them. Watching from a distance, Plum was speechless. She had heard rumors about top-ranked players, but seeing one in action was completely different. Qinfeng's speed, precision, and ability to appear and disappear like a phantom, were unreal. In moments, the gold tier boss had lost half its health without landing a single proper counterattack. Plum's admiration grew. Then Qin Feng called out to her, using the name Little Black. Plum blinked in confusion and asked what he meant. She was still processing when he added that he was about to die soon. Plum repeated the word die with disbelief. He was dominating the fight and still held the upper hand. Why would he say something like that? Concerned, she asked for clarification, but Qin Feng waved it off, saying there was nothing for her to worry about, and that she should just wait for him to revive. Still puzzled, Plum pressed on, questioning where that name came from. She corrected him, explaining that her username was Black Plum, not Little Black. With a huff, she added that Little Black sounded more like a dog's name than a player's. Qin Feng paid no mind and continued calling her Little Black, unaffected by her annoyance. No matter how much she argued, he wouldn't change. The battle raged on. Meanwhile, back at the cliff, the same group of fools who had tried to attack Qin Feng earlier and were utterly obliterated had just revived. Their leader was furious, muttering to himself about how he used to slay legends in his prime and was now being bullied by a little girl. They still did not realize it was Qin Feng who had wiped them out earlier. They genuinely believed Plum was responsible. One of the lackeys then came running over, out of breath and wide-eyed with excitement. He had found Plum standing at the edge of the cliff, watching Shadow fight the boss solo below. The leader's frustration turned to excitement. He rallied his minions, determined to go after Shadow this time. No more mistakes, they would take him down. Back in the fight, Qin Feng continued analyzing the Golden Ghost ship's mechanics. He noted that once the boss's health dropped to half, it would unleash a massive area soul surge attack. Right on cue, the ship did exactly that. Qin Feng's eyes narrowed as he recognized the danger. The attack had insane range and paralyzed him for 5 seconds. With his current stats, there was no way to dodge it. The soul surge expanded in a massive shockwave, sending eerie energy rippling across the battlefield. Even Plum, watching from above, was stunned by the scale of the attack. It dealt 1,059 damage, and the system prompt showed that player Shadow had died, losing 326 years of untradeable lifespan and 1,087 days of tradable lifespan. At the top of the cliff, the fools arrived just in time to witness Qin Feng's death. They erupted in laughter, mocking the so-called expert who had died trying to solo a gold-tier boss. Their scorn was sharp. Then their attention shifted to the loot drop from Shadow's death. Its sheer size made their hearts race. They estimated it contained at least 300 days' worth of lifespan. Greed overtook them. With the Golden Ghost ship already at half health, they believed they could swoop in, finish it off, and claim the boss's loot. One confidently declared that the underdogs were devouring half of Shadow's top-ranked lifespan. They charged forward only to find themselves in hell. The scene shifted back to the starter town, where the same group of clueless idiots stood. One, still catching his breath, muttered in disbelief about how Shadow had managed to cut the Golden Ghost ship's health in half. A supposed powerhouse. Another grumbled about barely setting foot in the swamp before being obliterated by the water pillars, questioning how they could stand a chance. Their leader was far from amused. His face twisted in frustration as he growled that this wasn't acceptable. They had taken losses, and he would not let it end like this. Turning to his crew, his voice was firm as he ordered a retreat to prepare for a rematch. Meanwhile, back at the swamp, Qin Feng gracefully landed, his feet barely making a sound as he touched down. His eyes quickly scanned the battlefield, and a smirk tugged at the corners of his lips as he took in the sight before him. Lifespan loot orbs scattered all around. His jackpot, essentially. Without missing a beat, he called out to Plum, asking what had happened and why there were so many lifespan orbs lying around. Amused by how quickly he made it back, Plum explained with a laugh that a group of overconfident players had stormed in, thinking they could take down the Golden Ghost ship. Unfortunately for them, they were wiped out instantly by the boss's water column attack. Hearing this, Qin Feng chuckled, his amusement clear. Typical, he mused. Those fools must have severely overestimated their own strength. His mind briefly drifted back to his past life, remembering the agony the Golden Ghost ship had caused him then. How many times had he struggled with this thing? How much had it cost him? But his focus quickly returned to the battle at hand. Analyzing the boss's attack patterns, Qin Feng noted that its immobilization skill was a one-time trick. After that, its remaining health was easy to deal with, at least for him. He had learned to recognize that when the boss dropped below half health, it often had a chance to teleport away, frustrating most players who couldn't finish it in time. For him, however, that was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Without wasting a moment, Qin Feng activated his poison dart skill, expertly aiming at the glowing bells hanging from the Golden Ghost ship's mast. The dart landed cleanly, and the ship immediately began preparing its counterattack. A menacing purple energy radiating ominously from its core. But Qin Feng remained unfazed. Still under the effects of his invincibility skill, he dashed forward, a smirk forming on his face. "I've memorized your movement patterns," he calmly stated, knowing he had already anticipated the ship's next move. Closing the distance in an instant, Qin Feng unleashed a devastating instant shadow slash, his blade cutting clean through the boss with deadly precision. The Golden Ghost ship shuddered under the attack, its health bar dropping even further. Meanwhile, the same group of idiots from earlier finally arrived at the cliff overlooking the battle. One of them quickly pointed, his voice filled with disbelief. "Shadow's back! He's fighting the Golden Ghost ship again." Their leader, still fuming with frustration, saw this as the perfect moment to strike. With both Shadow and the boss locked in battle, it was an opportunity to eliminate them both and claim the rewards for themselves, he growled. Plum, noticing their arrival, wasn't surprised. Trouble seemed to follow these fools wherever they went, she thought with a sigh. Seeing that the battle was reaching its climax, she knew she couldn't let them interfere. Without hesitation, she activated a lightning-based spell, her body crackling with energy as the bolt shot out from her fingertips. The powerful strike hit its mark, sending the leader and another lackey sprawling, as electricity surged through them, leaving them dazed and burned. The idiot leader, struggling to his feet, scanned the battlefield, his eyes searching for the source of the attack. One of his men, still trembling from the shock, quickly gestured toward Plum's location, confirming that a mage was responsible for the lightning strike. A twisted grin spread across the leader's face, as his anger shifted into something more sinister. Without wasting any more time, he picked up his weapon and signaled his men to attack. Realizing she had drawn their full attention, Plum immediately took off, calling for help as the idiots chased after her with single-minded determination. To them, eliminating her had now become their top priority. Meanwhile, hidden behind the trees, several other players quietly observed the unfolding chaos. Unlike the reckless fools chasing Plum, these players remained serious and patient, focused entirely on the true prize. The battle between Shadow and the Golden Ghost ship continued. Circling the massive ship-like entity, Qin Feng remained composed. The fight was nearing its end, just as he had anticipated. Despite being only a level 5 boss, the Golden Ghost ship had proven to be a formidable opponent, especially when faced alone. The battle had taken longer than expected, mostly due to his low damage output, but it had also drawn too much attention. Qinfeng was well aware of the threats surrounding him. The group on the cliff was currently occupied chasing Plum, and another group positioned by the swamp was waiting for the right moment. Their plan was obvious: wait for him to land the finishing blow, then ambush him before he could collect his rewards. Before any of them could make a move, the battle reached its climax. With one final strike, the Golden Ghost ship was sent crashing down, its massive form shattering upon impact. At that moment, the system registered his victory. Player Shadow had successfully defeated the gold-grade boss, Monster, Golden Ghost ship. A system notification flashed, confirming his achievement. 1,800 experience points earned, level 8 reached, 7 evolution points gained, and 216 days of tradable lifespan awarded. As the Golden Ghost ship began to disintegrate into loot, Qinfeng allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The monster had put up a good fight, he thought. But in the end, it miscalculated. It never stood a chance. Without wasting another second, he activated Shadow Sneak, his figure gradually fading into the darkness, just as the scavengers lurking nearby prepared to make their move. Meanwhile, back in the Shell Town, a system notification rang out across the server. Player Shadow had become the first player to defeat a gold-grade boss monster. As a result, he had earned 3 reputation points. The announcement sent a ripple through the player base, sparking countless discussions. Players speculated about Shadow's origin, questioning which country Shell Village belonged to. Among those reacting to the announcement was Wang Meng, who stared at the system message in shock, his mind racing as he processed the implications. It hadn't been long since Shadow was last seen fighting a bronze-grade boss on his own. Yet, in such a short span of time, he had already single-handedly taken down a gold-grade boss. The sheer gap in strength between Shadow and the rest of the players was staggering. Wang Meng, still in shock, couldn't help but wonder how such a difference in power was even possible. How had Shadow become this strong so quickly? Meanwhile, Qinfeng's younger sister had no doubt about one thing. This Shadow player was the strongest. If she could convince him to help her level up, she'd reach her long-awaited goal much faster and finally be able to meet her crush, Song Fei. Back at the swamp, the aftermath of the battle became apparent. The Golden Ghost ship boss had dropped an incredible amount of high-quality loot, more than anyone had expected. The players who had been hiding near the swamp couldn't help but comment on the sheer value of the drops, their greed becoming more and more evident. The leader of the group quickly assessed the situation, his mind calculating every move. He noted that Shadow hadn't collected the loot, meaning he must still be nearby, likely using his invisibility skill to stay hidden. Cautious but determined, he immediately gave orders. He sends one of his lackeys, Guang, to reveal Shadow's location and take him down before he can claim his rewards. Guang didn't hesitate. Drawing his bow, he channeled his energy into the arrowhead, which began to glow with a vibrant green hue. As he released the shot, the arrow morphed in mid-air, transforming into a phantom-horned eagle, a tracking skill designed to locate hidden targets. The spectral bird soared above the battlefield, scanning the area where Shadow had disappeared. Within moments, it locked onto a presence ahead. Qinfeng, still concealed, immediately recognized the skill. The phantom-horned eagle, a specialized anti-invisibility detection ability, was something he hadn't expected to see so early in the game. However, the effort was futile. While the detection skill was impressive, it was only at level 1. What they didn't realize was that his assassin class naturally granted a +1 level to his invisibility, a small but crucial advantage. Their tracking attempt was useless. The phantom horned eagle wouldn't be able to break through his stealth. The hunt continued, but Shadow remained one step ahead. Back with the group, Guang, having scanned the battlefield and found nothing, turned to his teammates and told them Shadow must have fled when he saw their numbers. There's no other explanation for why the eagle couldn't detect him, he concluded, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Their leader let out a small chuckle, clearly amused by the supposed retreat. Seems like Shadow knows when he's outmatched. Smart move, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. With that assumption, he led his men toward the scattered loot, their confidence growing. However, he didn't let his guard down completely. As they surrounded the area, he reminded his team that the boss loot ownership timer is 5 minutes. If no one collects it within that period, it'll be free for the taking. All they have to do is wait it out, and the treasure will be theirs. Just as they smirked in anticipation, completely absorbed in their perceived victory, a dark silhouette moved silently through the shadows. Before they could react, Shadow was already upon them. With a single strike of his instant shadow slash, a wave of dark energy engulfed them, obliterating the entire group in an instant. Their bodies crumpled to the ground as the system confirmed their deaths. Their bodies crumbled into loot, their ambitions shattered before they even realized what had happened. Standing amidst the silence, Qinfeng casually noted how peaceful it was now, with no distractions. His gaze shifted to the towering pile of loot before him, though something nagged at the back of his mind. Plum had disappeared. No matter, he would find her later. For now, something far more interesting demanded his attention. Having accumulated enough evolution points, he chose to upgrade his Hand of Avarice skill. A system notification flashed before him, confirming the evolution. His Hand of Avarice has advanced from Diamond rank to Epic rank. The skill now grants a 220% to 300% chance of obtaining extra loot from monster corpses. Even more intriguing was the fact that any extra loot generated had a guaranteed 100% chance of being a tier higher than usual. Taking full advantage of the upgrade, Shadow stretched his hand toward the glowing orbs of loot. Since the skill guaranteed an extra drop, he decided to gather all the orbs into a single collection point, maximizing his rewards. As he did so, a brilliant light engulfed the area, signaling the activation of Hand of Avarice. The results were immediate. A flood of system notifications appeared before him. He gained 7 evolution points. 3 instances of 216 days worth of tradable lifespan were obtained. 3 special items, Phantom Fire Bells, were acquired. Holding 2 Phantom Fire Bells in his hands, Shadow silently marveled at his luck. Not only had he obtained one, he had secured 2. The system provided a quick explanation. The Phantom Fire Bell was a special item which, when equipped, prevented the player from losing lifespan upon death. It had a cooldown ranging from 15 to 60 seconds and possessed 3 key abilities. First is Soul Absorb, which increases the amount of lifespan dropped by monsters by 20%. If 2 Phantom Fire Bells were equipped, this effect is doubled. Another is Soul Shock, which allows the player to shake the Phantom Fire Bell to immobilize all enemies within a 100-meter radius for 3 seconds, with a cooldown of 521 seconds. Lastly, inventory efficiency ensured that, since the Phantom Fire Bell was categorized as an item, it did not take up an equipment slot. Even better, both bells only occupied a single inventory space, rare and highly efficient. Shadow silently praised his luck. This haul had proven more than worth the risk. But his moment of satisfaction was short-lived as a familiar voice pierced through the swamp. Plum's desperate cries for help reached his ears, prompting him to immediately inquire about her location. The scene shifted to Plum, who found herself at the edge of a cliff. The foolish leader and his minions closed in on her. The leader, his tone mocking, observed that she had managed to evade them for a while, but had now run out of options. One of his lackeys urged her to surrender peacefully, promising that she would feel good about ascending to heaven. Plum glanced down at the steep drop, assessing her predicament. In a bold move, she leapt from the cliff, leaving the group in stunned silence. The fall was significant. As she closed her eyes and braced for impact, she landed with such force that her head bled from the strike, and her body instantly transformed into loot. Despite the pain, her resolve was unmistakable. Watching from above, the leader couldn't help but acknowledge her determination. Jumping to one's death was no easy feat, and a grim sense of respect lingered in his thoughts. Meanwhile, back with Qin Feng, a message arrived from Plum. She informed him that there was no need to rescue her. She had already died and respawned in the starter town. Her tone remained practical. She added that while her death had been excruciating, their party's tradable lifespans were controlled by their captain, Wang Meng. Qin Feng sighed in relief after reading the message and quickly refocused on the loot he had gathered. He had made significant gains this time. His tradable lifespan had reached 3,115 days, and his evolution points had risen to 2. Qin Feng assessed his progress with satisfaction. Pleased with the results, he attempted to upgrade his Hand of Avarice skill once again, but was met with an unexpected system notification. The skill was already at epic rank. To evolve it further, he would need 10 times the current evolution points. The system prompted him to spend 210 points, but Qin Feng quickly realized that higher level upgrades came with significantly steeper costs. Lacking the necessary points, he redirected his focus to enhancing his attacking skills instead. Increasing his damage output would enable him to take on tougher bosses, which in turn would improve his loot collection. As he began channeling evolution points into his offensive skills, a golden light enveloped his body. A system window appeared, announcing that his instant shadow slash had evolved from platinum to diamond rank. The upgrade extended the slash's range from 21 meters to 24, and then to 27. The duration of his invisibility also increased, stretching from 7 seconds to 8, and eventually to 9. This allowed him to land between 5 to 7 slashes on all enemies in his path, expanding the overall skill duration by 10.43 seconds. Additionally, the length of each slash increased from 3.1 meters to 4.1, with each strike now dealing an extra 300 points of damage. Another notification followed. 10 evolution points had been spent, leaving him with only 3. His backstab skill had also advanced to gold tier, doubling the damage bonus from 15% to 30% when striking from behind. Gazing at his hand, still shimmering with golden energy, Qin Feng felt a deep sense of accomplishment. With the instant shadow slash evolving twice, its damage had effectively doubled. Even outside of stealth mode, he could now deal 3,000 points of damage, using the stealth breaking effect alone. Combining this with his upgraded backstab skill meant that the total damage output from the 7 slashes could now range between 6,000 and 7,000 points. Observing the system interface, Qin Feng noted that gold-tier boss monsters typically dropped 2 to 4 pieces of silver equipment, with only a slim chance of yielding gold-tier items. Thanks to the effects of Hand of Avarice, however, the haul was far superior. 11 pieces of gold-tier equipment and skill books, 2 platinum equipment pieces, and 1 platinum skill book. The loot was impressive, especially since 3 of the items were ideally suited for assassin-class characters. Among the acquisitions was a ghost ship dual blade, a platinum weapon tailored for assassins. This weapon increases attack power by 136, agility by 22, and attack speed by 24%. It also featured 17 points of armor penetration and required a minimum level of 5, a requirement Qin Feng had long surpassed. A system notification detailed the weapon's special effect. Every normal attack would deal double damage. Holding the dual blades in his hands, Qin Feng studied them carefully. While the special effect offered little benefit to someone who relied primarily on skill-based damage, the high base attack, added agility, and increased attack speed would enhance his skill casting efficiency and reduce recovery time. Despite the lackluster effect, the weapon remained a valuable tool, especially considering its armor-piercing capability. Another notification introduced the Ghostfire leather armor, a gold tier item. It boosted physical defense by 25, granted 50 points of fire elemental resistance, blocked 14 damage, and increased overall health by 419 points. Like the weapon, it required a level of 5, another benchmark already met. Although leveling up had not improved his constitution, leaving his base health at 350, the armor significantly increased his survivability. Recognizing its utility, Qin Feng decided to make the armor invisible, preserving the aesthetic of a typical assassin. This way, other players would be unable to detect his gear unless inspecting him through the system interface. Among the final pieces of loot was a Ghost Shadow Blur skill book. This gold tier passive skill, designed for assassins, offered a 15% dodge rate, and when activated, granted short-term immunity to all forms of damage. Reviewing the system window, Qin Feng acknowledged that this was a proper survival skill for an assassin. Yet he also understood its limitations. Dodge rate enhancements in this game were notoriously difficult to scale, often at the expense of other attributes. Worse, if the dodge failed to activate, it could result in fatal consequences. Still, Qin Feng believed he was different. With his ability to endlessly evolve skills using evolution points, he could raise the dodge rate without sacrificing other stats. Over time, this would grant him a significant advantage. As he made his way back to the starter town, he reflected on the remaining loot. Most of it suited warriors, priests, and archers. According to his agreement with Plum, he planned to sell these items to Wang Meng and his team at a 10% discount. He knew they might not be able to afford them immediately, but Wang Meng's persuasive nature made it likely he could resell the gear quickly, even on credit. Qin Feng also considered the massive upgrades he had gained, all thanks to Plum, whom he still affectionately referred to as Little Black. Without her uncanny luck, he would never have encountered the level 5 Golden Ghost Ship boss that had dropped such rare items. His gratitude lingered, and he made a mental note to express it properly. As he approached the town, the group of fools who had previously chased and cornered Plum were also returning. The foolish leader, now visibly frustrated, locked eyes with Qin Feng. Panic rippled through his followers. Without hesitation, they turned and fled, their legs moving faster than their thoughts. Even the leader, scrambling to escape, was abandoned. Qin Feng remained calm. With his composure unshaken, he activated his latent image skill and, in the same serene manner, unleashed his instant shadow slash. In a single blink, the minions were erased. No time to fight back. No chance to escape. Only the foolish leader remained, pressed against a thick patch of bushes and gasping for breath. Just as he thought he had escaped, Qin Feng appeared directly in front of him, effortlessly blocking the path. The leader froze, eyes wide with terror. He pleaded desperately, his voice cracking with panic. He begged for mercy, promised never to harm Plum again, and claimed to have less than a year of lifespan left. Dying here, he insisted, would be the end of him. But Qin Feng's expression remained cold and unchanging. There was no empathy in his gaze. He questioned whether the man had considered his own fate when attacking someone like Plum. Then, without hesitation, he activated his poison dart skill. A dart embedded itself in the leader's forehead, and the effect was immediate. Green liquid seeped from his wounds as he writhed on the ground in agony, screaming under the relentless pain. As Qin Feng resumed his journey, a red aura enveloped him. A system notification appeared above his head. A new title, Killer. Due to his excessive player kills, he had attained the first layer of killer status. This meant that upon death, he would lose 75% of his current lifespan. Qin Feng, however, remained indifferent. With the Phantom Firebell in his possession, he wouldn't lose any lifespan, even if he died recklessly. Its protective effect rendered the killer title effectively meaningless. The scene shifted as Qin Feng entered Shell Town, his stealth skill still active. Upon deactivating it, surrounding players were visibly startled by his sudden appearance. A few whispered among themselves, speculating that Shadow had returned after defeating a gold-tier boss monster. One player, still unsure, remarked that this might be a translation error from the team responsible for the game. Suddenly, Qin Feng encountered one of the teams that had previously tried to attack him during his battle with the Golden Ghost ship. The team leader, his expression filled with contempt, accused him outright. He claimed Qin Feng exploited bugs to defeat the boss solo, which was why it didn't drop any loot. He also mocked him for not wearing any equipment, clearly dismissing Qin Feng's strategic use of invisibility. Qin Feng noticed the anger on the team leader's face as he approached, his presence becoming a tangible force. The leader quickly tried to smooth things over, sensing Qin Feng was not someone to be trifled with. He raised a hand and said it was a mistake to attack him. They had used some of their lifespan to buy Qin Feng an assassin skill book, and asked him to accept it so they could move on as if nothing had happened. Qin Feng glanced at the book. The system window revealed the skill book was called Impale, a common assassin skill that granted a single target attack, adding 20 points of damage, and inflicting a 2-second stun with a 22-second cooldown. Recognizing it as a control ability, Qin Feng accepted it without a word. As he turned to walk away, one team member, frustrated, shouted at their leader, Xian, questioning why they were expected to appease Shadow with a skill book after being defeated. Another teammate added they had never been treated like this before. The first insisted they needed to leverage their connections and rally more players, saying that even a small effort from everyone could overwhelm Shadow, and questioned why they should fear him. Xian interrupted coolly and calculated that Shadow was leveling up quickly and must have a significant secret. If they could locate him in the real world, they could capture him, uncover his secrets, and force him to gather resources as a slave. The others' faces lit up with excitement, praising Xian's brilliance. He then suggested sending a professional beauty to extract information from Shadow. He said the woman would have a foreign appearance and likely come from poverty, which they could use to their advantage. Once they had a woman working on Shadow, he would fall for the scheme. The others nodded eagerly, imagining how they would trap the mysterious player. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was reunited with Plum, who greeted him with her usual bright smile. He affectionately called her Little Black and encouraged her to accept the trade so he could share some loot with her. Plum giggled and corrected him that her name was actually Big Plum, not Little Black. She excitedly tried out the loot she received, exclaiming it was amazing and that she would level up quickly. She explained the skill and necklace Qin Feng provided had significantly boosted her damage output and more than doubled her mana regeneration. Gratefully, she thanked him. Qinfeng smiled and reminded her he was just fulfilling their agreement. Then he asked for the space ring Plum had promised him, and she happily handed it over. As she did, she shared that while escaping through the forest, she had stumbled upon an underground cave that seemed to be an entrance to a ruin. Qinfeng was momentarily surprised. First, the Golden Ghost ship, and now a ruin entrance. He realized befriending Plum might be more advantageous than he initially thought. He wondered if she would have shared this information without receiving 2 gold-tier items from the loot, or if she had been deceived into giving him the space ring. His inventory had expanded to 27 slots, so he decided to go along with it. He asked Plum about Wang Meng's whereabouts. After selling some loot to her and the rest of their group, he planned to visit the ruins she mentioned. Plum agreed, but informed him that Captain Wang Meng and the others were busy training a new priest and might not return for a while. Checking her system window, she pointed out she had marked the entrance to the ruins on her map. She also mentioned stone slabs behind the bushes, and explained how she had moved one aside to hide while escaping. Plum recounted that she had taken a few steps inside when she heard screams that frightened her so much, she ran. Otherwise, she would have been caught by those fools. Qinfeng quickly activated his latent image skill, becoming invisible as he reassured her he understood. He planned to head to the ruins right away and trade with Wang Meng when they returned. Plum was surprised by his swift invisibility, but smiled and nodded. Qinfeng stealthily approached the location Plum indicated, reflecting that he had originally planned to grind until level 10. But with the ruins nearby, grinding seemed unnecessary. His next adventure awaited. His voice carried a quiet but deadly certainty as he spoke. His gaze locked ahead. In a starter town like this, 3 types of ruins were usual suspects: tombs, cursed ruins, and temples of faith. He knew the drill. Bronze-tier mobs, maybe a few silver-tier ones. For him, it wasn't just an ordinary challenge. It was a gold mine waiting to be mined for lifespan and evolution points. When he arrived at the spot Plum mentioned, he quickly spotted the stone slab she had shoved aside earlier. Without wasting a beat, he slipped inside, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Tombs were the bread and butter of these places, he mused. His tone detached as he walked deeper into the darkness. Endless waves of monsters, and usually a gold-tier boss waiting at the end. Trying to clear them was a pipe dream. His eyes scanned the dimly lit path before him, the air thick with the weight of what lay ahead. Cursed ruins were a different breed, full of monsters twisted by ancient dark gods. Some were once human, but now driven insane or transformed into something far worse. The temples were designed to test you. The people inside were devout followers, and their layouts were always twisted, full of traps and dead ends. But if you could get through them, you were rewarded with either a special item or a skill book. He walked deeper. The walls of the temple were covered with murals that seemed to come alive under his gaze. His suspicion was confirmed. The place was indeed a temple of faith dedicated to the ancient god of judgment, the same god whose power pulsed within him. The symbols on the walls mirrored the ones he knew well. His eye of judgment flickered in response. Suddenly, from the depths of the temple, faint cries echoed, distant but sharp. His senses went on high alert. Something was wrong, and he could feel it in his gut. In a dense, murky forest far from the temple, Wang Meng was fighting for his life. The monster's claws came down like thunder, and his holy shield barely held the line. His body shook with the force of each strike, but he refused to let up. This was his team's only chance. He had to keep them alive. A bone-crushing roar shattered the air, and before Wang Meng could process the sound, the beast struck with the force of a freight train. He was sent flying, crashing into the ground with a sickening thud. His shield didn't stand a chance, and despite his best efforts, he felt the damage ripple through him. Behind him, his younger priest froze, eyes wide with terror. One of the teammates screamed for her to heal him, but she couldn't move. Her body was locked in place, fear paralyzing her. She didn't even know how to use her skills properly, let alone save him. Her hands shook as she whispered, begging for someone to help. But the monster was already upon them. It was too late. The rest of the team saw the inevitable. They were done for. In their last moments, they begged the priest to heal Wang Meng, their tank, but the girl couldn't even stand up, her voice trembling. She repeated that she was scared, her voice cracking, each word heavier than the last. She had no answer, no way to save them. The silence that followed was unbearable, the air thick with defeat. They had lost. Back in the starter town, Wang Meng and his team returned, the weight of their failure heavy on their shoulders. Their faces were grim and frustration written all over them. Plum, ever cheerful, greeted them with her usual bright smile. She asked what happened and why they were back so soon. Shadow still hadn't returned, so they were stuck without new gear. But the team had reached their breaking point with Qin Feng's younger sister. One of Wang Meng's teammates, anger boiling over, stepped forward and spat that she was useless. She didn't know how to dodge or use her skills. What was even the point of having her on the team? Plum blinked in shock. This was the first time she'd seen them so enraged. She turned to look at Qin Feng's sister, whose face was wet with tears, and a protective instinct kicked in. She stepped forward, standing between them. She asked why they were being so harsh on her. She reminded them she was just starting out, and that everyone dies a few times in the beginning. It was normal. The angered player shoved her aside, his voice seething. He threatened to scold her into oblivion. Another teammate clarified bitterly that they hadn't just died once, but 3 times in under an hour. The word struck Plum like a slap. She was stunned for a moment, but then softened and made a decision. She said they should give the sister a chance, pointing out she had just received 2 valuable items from Shadow. If the sister joined them, they wouldn't die again. Wang Meng, sensing the tension, spoke up and tried to smooth things over. He agreed that if she joined, they'd be more coordinated, and maybe even run into Shadow when they went out again. Qin Feng's younger sister, still apologetic, nodded and promised to try harder, but inside, her thoughts were far from humble. Wang Meng and his team were failures. They couldn't even hold their ground. If it weren't for their connection to Shadow, she wouldn't waste time with them. A bunch of amateurs deep within the temple. Meanwhile, in the cave, Qin Feng pressed on, his steps deliberate as he moved through the crumbling ruins. The silence around him was suffocating, broken only by the eerie cries he'd heard earlier. His senses were heightened, and soon he spotted 2 figures kneeling in the center of the temple. The system immediately flagged them as devout followers of the ancient god of judgment, level 10 silver tier monsters. Without hesitation, Qin Feng activated Latent Image, cloaking himself in an invisible shroud. In the blink of an eye, he became a ghost. Then, with a burst of speed, he unleashed Instant Shadow Slash. His blade flashed through the air, landing perfectly on the 2 devout followers. But even with the advantage of stealth and a backstab, their health barely budged. Qin Feng's mind ran the numbers. Even with full damage output, these monsters were tougher than the gold-tier Golden Ghost ship he fought earlier. As he observed them closely, he noticed the devout followers remained kneeling in reverence, heads bowed low, instead of attacking. He raised an eyebrow, wondering if they could sense the eye of judgment on him. Is that why they weren't attacking? Testing the waters, he spoke to them, asking if they could guide him deeper into the temple, but they remained motionless. It quickly dawned on him they'd long been corrupted, driven mad by their dark worship. Now they were nothing more than wild beasts, roaming only to drain the lifespans of the living. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The devout followers became restless, twitching as if they sensed something. Without warning, they lunged, moving predatory and rushing past Qinfeng in a blur toward the temple entrance. Their hands glowed with a sickly poison-like aura. A group of players had just entered the temple, and upon seeing the approaching threat, chaos erupted. The players warned one another, frantically trying to prepare for the attack. Qinfeng watched the disaster unfold with almost detached amusement. The players barely managed to handle a single silver tier monster, and panic spread like wildfire. In desperation, they tried to flee but never made it far. Within moments, they were wiped out, their bodies crumbling into loot before his eyes. He noticed the sheer amount of tradable lifespan they dropped, over 100 days' worth. Qinfeng muttered in mild surprise that he didn't expect them to be this rich. He recognized the fallen players as part of Grey Rose, the same team that bought a snow cone spell from him earlier. They weren't well prepared, and judging by their poor coordination and lack of strategy, they were easy prey for the temple's guardians. Qinfeng's gaze hardened as he stepped out of the shadows. With lethal efficiency, he dispatched the remaining corrupted followers, ensuring no threat lingered. His mind was already calculating the best route deeper into the temple, knowing the gold tier boss waited ahead. This place was a gold mine, but he had to be cautious. The ruins weren't just a test of strength, they were a trial of will. Only those with the sharpest senses and the strongest resolve survived. Qinfeng smirked faintly. For him, this was just another step toward the power he craved. The authority of judgment was within reach, and nothing, not even the twisted ruins, would stand in his way. Qinfeng had slain 2 devout followers of the ancient god. The system notified him. 4,000 experience points gained. Level 9 achieved. 4 evolution points obtained. An additional 188 days of tradable lifespan acquired. A satisfied grin tugged at his lips. The rewards were substantial, yet he didn't stop there. Activating Hand of Avarice on the loot, he waited with anticipation. The power of an epic tier skill like this never ceased to impress. As expected, his evolution points surged to 32, and his tradable lifespan increased to 154 days. Among the loot were several gold tier items, and 10 silver tier ones. One item in particular drew his attention: the Pendant of the Faithful, a gold tier accessory designed for assassins. It offered a 15-point boost to agility, a 20% reduction in cooldowns, and required level 8 to equip. The system detailed its unique effect: the ability to summon a silver tier devout follower to fight on the user's behalf, with a cooldown of 600 seconds. Qinfeng examined the pendant carefully. The stats alone were impressive, but it was the cooldown reduction that truly piqued his interest. A 20% decrease would significantly enhance his combat efficiency. His stealth skill cooldown would drop from 22.65 seconds to 19.25. Poison Dart would be reduced from 4.35 to 3.75 seconds, and Instant Shadow Slash would fall from 10.45 to just 8.85 seconds. This upgrade would make grinding far more efficient. Since the rest of his inventory also required level 8 to equip, he decided to hold on to the pendant for now. It was too valuable to part with, at least for the time being. Selling it could wait. But then something unexpected occurred. As Qinfeng approached the temple's mechanism, the entire structure shifted. The floor beneath him began to descend slowly, functioning like an ancient elevator. Curiosity stirred within him as he wondered if it truly was one. As the platform sank deeper, the upper section of the temple sealed itself off. After several minutes of descent, the platform came to a halt. Qinfeng estimated he had traveled at least 300 to 400 meters underground. A quick glance around confirmed his suspicion. He recognized the area instantly. A hidden maze, he realized, his instincts sharpening. The pattern was all too familiar from his previous life. Hidden mazes were a common feature in ancient ruins. Filled with traps, they posed a danger, but with enough expendable support, they were more a test of endurance and patience than actual threat. One look at the pendant of the faithful reminded him of the stakes. Triggering a trap could mean immediate death. Thankfully, the pendant offered a saving grace. Its agility boost and cooldown reduction would provide the edge he needed. More importantly, it allowed him to summon a silver-tier devout follower to fight on his behalf. Without hesitation, Qinfeng activated the pendant. In an instant, the summoned follower appeared before him, fully ready for action. Wasting no time, he ordered the ally to scout ahead. Navigating the maze would be much easier with a lackey clearing the path. A slight smile crept onto his face at the thought, though he remained alert. Danger could strike at any moment. Deciding it was the right time, Qinfeng evolved his Ghost Shadow passive skill. A system window appeared, confirming the expenditure of 5 evolution points to upgrade the skill from Gold tier to Epic tier, leaving him with 24 points. The upgrade was substantial. His passive dodge rate soared from 15% to 75%, and activating the skill now granted him full damage immunity. He felt the surge of power flood through his body. This was going to make things far more interesting. He took a moment to admire his recent upgrades, the weight of his decisions settling over him. A 75% dodge rate alone was a game changer. A satisfied grin pulled at the corners of his lips. But there was more he could do. He had just enough points left to take Instant Shadow Slash to the next level. Epic tier awaited. The system prompt confirming the upgrade appeared on his screen with a satisfying chime. He had spent 13 evolution points, leaving him with only 11. The enhancements were extraordinary. His dash distance increased from 27 to 30 meters. The invisibility duration stretched from 9 to 12 seconds. Instead of 7, 9 slashes would now rain down on his enemies, each delivering a devastating 400 damage instead of the former 300. Even the slash width expanded from 4.1 to 5 meters, and the cooldown was reduced to a mere 12 seconds. The skill had become both deadlier and more efficient. Qinfeng's eyes gleamed as he considered the implications. Evolving from epic to legendary required 10 times the usual points. The higher a skill's starting tier, the more cost-effective it becomes in the long run. Epic tier skills were a treasure trove of potential. A skill that began at epic tier only needed 10 evolution points to reach legendary. In contrast, a skill starting at normal tier required 7 full evolutions just to reach epic, and by then, the cost to push further skyrocketed. His confidence grew as he reflected on the future of his skills. Once a skill reached epic tier, upgrades became much more efficient. From now on, all his skills were guaranteed to be at least epic. With only a handful of points remaining, Qinfeng turned his attention to his next upgrade. His starter skill, Latent Image, was due for an improvement. A system window confirmed that he had spent evolution points to evolve it from silver to gold and then to platinum tier. As the new stats popped up, his excitement grew. The stealth duration increased from 16 to 24 seconds, and the first strike that broke invisibility now dealt 90% more damage. The cooldown was trimmed down from 26 to 22 seconds, further enhancing the skill's effectiveness. With his 35% cooldown reduction, Qinfeng noted with a smirk that latent image was running smoother than ever. However, his thoughts shifted to the practical implications of his upgrades. His latent image cooldown had dropped to 16.3 seconds, but something felt off. It was still a bit long for a skill that didn't offer high burst damage. He mused that he would probably replace it down the line if something more effective came up. Before he could plan further, his attention snapped back to the situation at hand. The devout follower he had summoned had just triggered a trap. In the blink of an eye, a massive round boulder plummeted from above, crushing the follower under its weight. The follower's body disintegrated into loot, leaving Qinfeng watching with an almost amused attachment. He muttered that he would need to wait for the cooldown before summoning another. But with this maze's complexity, he couldn't afford to rush through it. The devout lackey would need to carefully explore every inch. Still, hope wasn't lost. The rewards at the end would be worth it. The maze might be deadly, but the treasure at its end would justify every step. Meanwhile, on the upper level of the temple, the players who had been wiped out earlier sneaked around the entrance, cautiously inspecting the area. One member quietly reported to their captain that the two monsters who had killed them had vanished. The captain, brows furrowed in thought, was piecing things together. Where did they go? And what happened to the lifespan loot? It didn't take long for the captain to put the pieces together. There was only one player capable of taking down 2 silver tier bosses so effortlessly this early in the game. None other than Shadow. As the team processed this revelation, one player sighed with relief since they wouldn't have to die again. However, the captain wasn't done. When they first arrived, they had seen someone seemingly communicating with the 2 boss monsters. Could that person have been Shadow? If so, did he have a skill or ability that allowed him to bewitch monsters? She speculated, her voice laced with intrigue. If that was the case, his ability must be terrifying, far beyond what any of them could comprehend. Back inside the maze, Qinfeng's devout follower triggered another hidden trap. Qinfeng remarked almost conversationally that he had been exploring the maze for about 3 hours and estimated he was close to the end. Based on his past life's experience, he knew the maze well. If he used human lives to navigate it, there would be hundreds of casualties. He couldn't afford that. He needed his follower. Without hesitation, he resummoned the devout follower, and the 2 pressed onward. After navigating a few more twists and turns, they reached a massive, imposing door. It was the kind of door that seemed to challenge anyone who approached. Qinfeng directed his follower to open it, but the door didn't budge. No matter how much strength the silver tier follower applied, it wouldn't open. This puzzled Qinfeng. Curious, he stepped forward and touched the door himself. To his surprise, it opened with ease, almost as if it had been waiting for him. What lies beyond? Qinfeng wondered, his mind racing. There was no time to waste. Both he and his follower dropped into defensive stances, alert for whatever awaited them. On the other side stood a mysterious altar, in stark contrast to the eerie quiet of the maze. At the center was a treasure chest wrapped in thorny vines. Next to it stood an NPC woman, mysterious and shrouded in secrets. Her presence was so strange that even the system couldn't identify her. This was the first time Qinfeng encountered an NPC the system couldn't recognize. The NPC bowed slightly, her voice incomprehensible, as if his level was too low to understand her language. Before Qinfeng could process what was happening, She knelt down and began to dissolve into loot, vanishing into the ether. The thorns around the treasure chest faded as she disappeared, leaving it accessible. Qinfeng theorized that she might be connected to his Eye of Judgment. With the chest now accessible, he eyed its golden glow. Epic tier loot, he mused. But the lingering question remained. Was it a trap, or worse, a mimic? He decided to play it safe and ordered his devout follower to open the chest. As the follower obeyed, the lid creaked open, and a burst of radiant golden light poured out. Inside, Qinfeng found a skill book. Not just any skill book, but an epic tier skill for assassins. A system window appeared confirming his acquisition. Bestowal of Mercy, an epic tier assassin skill book. The passive abilities were phenomenal. A 100% weak point hit correction rate, and a doubled weak point damage multiplier. Another window detailed the new active skill, Slit Throat. Slit Throat was a lethal assassin ability that, once activated on an enemy, inflicted damage over time, dealing 100% of the initial attack's damage every second for 3 seconds. With his 35% cooldown reduction, the skill's cooldown was reduced to 44.4 seconds. Qinfeng thought this would make his stealth kills a lot more efficient, his mind racing with plans for how to incorporate the new skill into his growing arsenal. Staring at the system window, Qinfeng couldn't help but smirk at the sheer power of Bestowal of Mercy. Double the hitbox size for weak points was a game changer. He mentally calculated the potential. If his initial attack dealt 300 damage, Slit Throat would apply 300 damage per second for 3 seconds. That was 1,200 damage, essentially tripling his output in a single strike. The realization hit him. This skill wasn't about spam attacks like his instant Shadow Slash, which rained down hits rapidly. Slit Throat was about precision, focusing on that first strike to create massive damage. It was a sniper shot, not a machine gun spray. Timing and accuracy would be the difference between life and death. What really caught his attention was the skill's potential for evolution. Since it was an epic tier skill, upgrading it to legendary would cost only 10 evolution points, practically peanuts for the destructive potential it held. For a skill like this, it was a steal, he thought, tapping his fingers against his leg. Feeling satisfied with the acquisition, Qinfeng grinned. The loot from this maze was insane. His burst damage was off the charts now. With that, he started heading toward the exit, planning his next moves. As he walked, his mind drifted to Plum, his always reliable partner who had made this entire venture possible. Though he still called her Little Black, he thought with a smirk that she had been helpful most of the time. Before leaving, he messaged Plum, asking her to get Wang Meng and the others to meet him at the starter town. He had valuable items to sell, and no one in this ruin had been prepared for the treasure trove he had acquired. Plum quickly replied, expressing surprise at how quickly he'd cleared the ruins and her eagerness to see what he had. Meanwhile, Qinfeng, cloaked in stealth, made his way toward Plum. When he finally reached her party, he was shocked to find his little sister among them. She stared at him in awe, completely unaware that Shadow was none other than her brother. His mind raced as he wondered how she had managed to slip into Wang Meng's team. Knowing her unpredictable behavior, he feared she would only drag the entire group down. He reminded himself that he couldn't afford mistakes. His identity as Shadow was no longer something easily hidden. It was a fragile shield, and if pierced before he had a chance to transfer his powers to the real world, everything could come crashing down. Anyone, even with the most mundane weapon, could take him down if his true identity was exposed. Still, his little sister, caught up in admiration for him, was oblivious to the danger. She could sense the vast difference in power between Shadow and Wang Meng's team. Her thoughts immediately turned to Song Fei. She started calculating how easy it would be to level up with Shadow's help. Meanwhile, Qin Feng handed Wang Meng carefully selected equipment perfectly suited to the party's composition. He also provided skill books that would greatly enhance their combat effectiveness. He asked for a total payment of 2,200 days of lifespan, an astronomical sum in their current state. Wang Meng immediately noted the items were gold and silver tier, far too much for them to afford now. But Qin Feng reassured them they could pay later, emphasizing that trust went beyond the gold they could offer right now. Wang Meng, moved by the gesture, expressed gratitude and promised that they would return the favor if ever needed. Qin Feng nodded and passed them the gear. The team marveled at the rare items received so early in their journey. Wang Meng was overwhelmed by how much stronger his team had become. He spoke in wonder, noting that the gear was a sign that Shadow trusted them. While the rest of the group was ecstatic, Qin Feng's little sister stood in the background, eagerly waiting for what she would get. Sadly, nothing came. Wang Meng, feeling awkward, explained that no priest-class equipment was available for her. One team member shrugged casually, adding that she was lucky to be gaining experience with them at all, and this mounted her frustration. Determined to get something, she stepped forward, announcing she was the priest in Wang Meng's party, before trying to approach Shadow for equipment, and even attempting to add him as a friend. But Qin Feng didn't spare her a glance. Meanwhile, Qin Feng reappeared near the teleportation gate, all alone. He thought to himself that he had a gold-tier priest staff and a gold-tier priest skill book stashed away in storage. But there was no way he was giving those rare items to someone like his sister. She was reckless, and her presence was a liability that could jeopardize his connection with Wang Meng's team. His mind was made up. In the future, he would have an overflow of high-tier equipment and skill books. Selling them individually was a waste of time. With Wang Meng's influence and connections to the government, he saw a perfect opportunity for bulk selling. But for that, he needed a team that was reliable and efficient. His sister didn't fit that mold. She was going to be replaced. Qin Feng thought of little Shui. Her real name was Gaku, and she was the White Priestess. She was the only priest who had ever soloed an epic-tier boss. Comparing her to his sister was an insult. Little Shui was a strategic powerhouse, while his sister was little more than a burden. It was time for a change. As Qin Feng passed through the teleportation gate, a sudden realization hit him like a freight train. He remembered Little Shui, originally hailed from Firefly Town, the very same place where Song Fei was based. Coincidentally, Firefly Town was also his next destination. This was perfect. He could track her down and bring her into Wang Meng's party. His mind racing through possibilities, Qin Feng activated Latent Image to stay hidden as he stepped into the vibrant world of Firefly Town. Unlike other starter towns, this one was bathed in a warm golden glow with sunlight that never seemed to fade. The path through Firefly Town shimmered in the gentle morning light, picturesque and inviting, a beacon for adventurers unaware of the darkness lurking within the game. Hidden in the shadows, Qin Feng listened as two players rushed past, speaking of a silver-tier monster they intended to defeat. Their conversation shifted, filled with irritation towards Song Fei, who had become infamous for manipulating his legion of female fans, using charm and celebrity to mold them into his devoted followers. They scoffed at his influence, unable to fathom how someone of only mid-tier fame had built such a powerful cult of personality. Fueled by resentment, they vowed to take him down. Qin Feng stifled a laugh, irony curling at the corners of his lips. Information about Song was practically falling into his hands. But these two? They posed no real threat. Only Shadow could confront Song Fei. Still curious, Qin Feng followed, slipping silently behind them as they made their way to the Wailing Valley, a treacherous level 5 zone swarming with Ember Fiends and the Shackled. Signs of battle marred the valley. Screams, spells, and chaos echoed through the rocky terrain. Qin Feng drew closer, drawn by the turmoil. A silver-tier Ember Fiend, crowned with twin flaming heads, loomed over a chaotic battlefield. Players flailed against it, but instead of working together, they turned on each other. At the center stood Song Fei, calm, untouched, surrounded by a protective ring of enchanted girls casting shields and spells in his defense. He had no reason to fear. His fans had become his armor. The two furious players charged at him, spurred by the belief that Song had stolen their lifespan. One of them, confident in his anti-aging skill Lockjaw, rushed ahead. But before he could close the distance, a mage from Song Fei's circle stepped forward, her staff slicing a deadly arc. The man dropped instantly, his body crumbling. Qin Feng observed with a mixture of amusement and contempt. These girls were not allies. They were pawns in Song Fei's game. In his previous life, Song had held the title of heaven-defying mage god. He coerced his fans into choosing the mage class, then drained them of resources, equipment, skill books, even lifespan, to empower himself. Ruthless, effective, and devastating in the game's early days. But that empire was fading. The strategy had dulled. Song Fei's fanatics lagged behind, and his reign had begun to crumble. Still, he maintained the illusion. With a dramatic gesture, he mourned the effort his fans exerted for his sake, wishing aloud for peace in a world marred by violence. The twin-headed fiend advanced, casting its towering shadow over them. One girl, eyes blazing with devotion, stepped forward. She declared that Song had suffered more than anyone, and vowed not to let the monster harm him. Her fervor sparked a chain reaction. The others followed her lead, launching a flurry of spells, united in purpose and resolute in their belief. They would make Song Fei their king. They would follow him to the ends of the earth. The monster retaliated. Flames surged toward Song Fei. He instinctively braced for impact, but a fan hurled herself in front of him, taking the full force of the inferno. Her scream tore through the air as her body dissolved into particles of data. Song knelt beside her fading form, wearing a mask of sorrow. She whispered a final vow, willing to give everything for him. Another girl, overcome with rage, rallied the others. If they could bring down the monster, Song Fei would rise in the rankings and surpass Shadow. Lightning, fire, and raw magic rained down on the twin-headed beast, staggering it beneath the unrelenting assault. Meanwhile, Song's thoughts drifted inward. With the boss defeated, he would ascend to level 8. Shadow had stagnated at level 9. This was his opportunity. The top spot would finally be his. But then the Shadow descended, with his hand closed over Song Fei's mouth. In a flash, he severed Song Fei's head with a silent, merciless slash. Blood sprayed, and Song crumpled. The field froze. Shock silenced the fans. Then, faster than thought, Qin Feng struck again. Thunder surged through his blade as he sliced through Song's followers and the silver tier boss in a single brutal storm. A system prompt appeared. Boss defeated. 150 EXP earned. The twin-headed fiend collapsed into orbs of lifespan. Stunned players stared as the stealth field dropped and Qin Feng appeared. The smartest among them realized the truth. An attack from Shadow had annihilated them all in a single blow. Where their combined efforts barely scratched the boss, Shadow had delivered devastation. Cheers slowly rose. They praised Shadow, the king of the game. But Chen Feng knew better. Their cheers were hollow. They feared him. That was all. In his previous life, he would have slaughtered them without a second thought. For now, he let them live. Far away, in Firefly Town, Song Fei respawned. A system message coldly informed him of his loss. 1,116 days of tradable lifespan, and 18 years, 113 days of non-tradable time. Panic gripped him. Out of all the starter towns, how had Shadow appeared here to steal his kill? His followers began respawning, dazed and furious. One girl trembled, asking why he was dead again. Another said Shadow had struck while he was distracted. A timid archer stepped forward, offering her eagle eye ability to detect invisible enemies. Song Fei, ever the manipulator, welcomed her with open arms, speaking of love and unity. Overcome with emotion, she accepted, tears spilling as she joined his ranks. More voices pledged revenge. One girl boasted of a new spell to trap Shadow. Song Fei, basking in the attention, opened his arms to all. They would dominate the world together, he declared. They wept, swearing to avenge him, branding Shadow a coward for striking from behind. Two quiet players watched from afar, baffled by the cult-like devotion. The obsession was beyond logic. Still, Song Fei smiled. Defeating Shadow in front of them would end the legend. He would be the one to tear down the myth. Meanwhile, Chen Feng collected his spoils. Greedy Hand activated. 16 evolution points, 217 days of tradable lifespan, 6 silver tier items, and 1 gold tier drop. Another step closer to perfection. Without pause, he evolved Graceful Liberation to Legendary. The skill now triggered Throat Slit. 150% damage per second. Duration increased to 3 seconds. Cooldown reduced to 18.5. His attack multipliers doubled. Weak points would now be obliterated in seconds. Even Shadow Slash would now deal fatal damage. To evolve Graceful Liberation to Mythical, he would need 200 evolution points. Greedy Hand required 210 to reach Legendary, and 340 for the next tier. For now, he upgraded Backstab Enhancement to Platinum, increasing its passive damage boost to 40%. Satisfied, he turned to leave, but the rustle of movement stopped him. A girl lunged at him from the shadows, her blade aimed at his back. Chen Feng evaded easily. She struck again. He dodged without effort. Confused, she vanished into stealth, attempting another ambush. Then, above the cliffs, Song Fei's followers appeared. They had cornered him. Mages raised their staffs, the archer readied her bow, and the air thickened with tension as they screamed for vengeance. Qin Feng vanished into stealth, but the archer activated Eagle Eye. A spectral eagle shot forward, exploding into ethereal feathers. The feathers struck one of their own, an assassin, forcing her out of stealth. The chubby girl grinned and gave the order to attack with everything they've got. Panic overtook the assassin. She cried out, but it was too late. The spells hit. She exploded, a casualty of mistaken identity. The chubby girl smiled coldly. A punishment from the heavens, she said. Another fake fan is gone. She ordered Eagle Eye again. Before the skill could launch, Qin Feng activated the Ghost Fire Bell. A single ring immobilized everyone within 100 meters for 3 seconds. In the silence that followed, Qin Feng reappeared. Swift as lightning, he cut through them. Song Fei's followers crumpled before they could react. Behind a rock, Song Fei peeked out. Confusion clouded his eyes. He couldn't understand how they died so fast. Could it be Shadow? He dismissed the thought. If it was truly Shadow, he would have shown himself. But Qin Feng was already approaching, silent, invisible, and deadly. His gaze held the arrogance of a predator poised to strike. Song Fei's heart jolted as he heard the voice. Shadow, the very man he had just dismissed. Fear widened his eyes, his body trembling. In a rush, he activated his magic shield, a shimmering barrier encircling him, but Qin Feng was already on the move. The poison dart flew with deadly accuracy, piercing the shield like fragile glass. It struck Song Fei's forehead, and he collapsed, screaming, his body dissolving into lifespan orbs. As Song Fei vanished, Qin Feng observed the orbs with quiet calculation. More than 2,000 days of tradable lifespan now belonged to him. The followers of Song Fei had none. They had sacrificed everything for a false god. Qin Feng straightened, the air around him shifting. The game had changed. Some still believed this was only a game. But Qin Feng intended to teach them what true power looked like. The crazed fans were terrifying, and it was a pity. The lifespan he had collected equated to several centuries. Now, much of it would be lost to the monsters nearby. Song Fei's worshippers had given everything. With their idol gone, their lifespan would be scattered across the wilds, unreachable. In Firefly Town, Song Fei and his followers respawned. Rage simmered in Song Fei's veins as he stared at his lifespan. Once over 2,000 tradable days, now barely 500 remained. He clenched his fists, eyes narrowing at the archer in his party. She faltered under his glare. The detection skill had failed. She explained she had used it, but only sensed their assassin's sister. The chubby girl, noticing the oversight, suggested the truth. Shadow's stealth level might be higher than anticipated. The archer admitted her eagle-eyed skill could only detect stealth level 1. If Shadow surpassed that, he would remain unseen. Song Fei's frustration deepened. Shadow had struck and vanished without leaving a trace. He couldn't understand why he was targeted. He had never wronged Shadow. Or had he? A vain thought crept in. Was it his unmatched beauty? Could Shadow have been driven by jealousy? His fans, sensing his pain, raised their weapons with renewed loyalty. They would level up elsewhere. Wherever Song Fei went, they would follow. Not long after, Qin Feng returned to Firefly Town, confused by the absence of Song Fei and his group. They might have gone to another location or logged off entirely. Deactivating his stealth, Qin Feng approached a nearby player and inquired about Song Fei's whereabouts. The player flinched at the sight of Shadow and quickly pointed in a direction, voice trembling. They had gone that way. Then, after a brief pause, the player begged. If Qin Feng was going to kill Song Fei, he should spare his girlfriend, a female hunter named Fei Bao. Qin Feng's response was cold and sharp. The man should find another girlfriend. His gaze turned calculating as he recognized the value of the hunter's eagle-eyed skill. Then, without another word, he faded into stealth. Desperation filled the player's voice as he pleaded. He had worked so hard to find her, but Qin Feng's thoughts were already elsewhere. Searching every corner would take too long. He needed help. He needed Zhui. At that moment, a woman passed by, catching his attention. Shock flickered through him. Zhui, the former manager of the Godslayer Guild in his past life. Qin Feng reappeared, a smile playing across his face as he called out to her. Startled, Shui turned. Recognition flashed in her eyes as she saw Shadow. Qin Feng presented her with the golden grade staff, offering it at a discounted price in exchange for help locating Song Fei. He mentioned her scanning abilities, watching as her curiosity piqued. She questioned how he knew of her skills. He replied with a teasing smile and hinted that he knew more than he let on. The offer was tempting, but she hesitated, unsure if she could afford it. Qin Feng raised an eyebrow and mentioned her 500 days of tradable lifespan, the discounted price. The original cost was over 700 days. She checked her system window. To her surprise, she had 700 days. Elated, she accepted the deal. The transaction was completed, the staff transferred, and a system window confirmed the exchange. Qin Feng tapped her cheek lightly and urged her not to keep him waiting. Shui, with cheeks flushed with excitement, clutched the staff. She promised to find Song Fei. As she activated the staff's scanning ability, an owl materialized, circling tightly overhead. Her focus sharpened as she peered at Qin Feng with amusement. She asked if he feared she might simply run off with the staff. Qin Feng's gaze softened. He asked if she hated Song Fei. Surprise flickered across her face. How did he know? Something about him felt familiar, like a forgotten memory tugging at the edge of her mind. She wondered if he was someone from her past life. Qin Feng's smile confirmed what she hadn't dared to believe. She raised her hand, and the owl soared higher. Within moments, her expression changed. Her target had been found. Song Fei and his remaining followers were traversing the canyons. Shui whispered the location with quiet resolve. The canyons. Qin Feng smirked, and the next phase was beginning. He watched as the owl flew across the sky, scanning for Song Fei. Its eyes pinpointed the target, hidden deep among the rocks. The message was clear. Qin Feng needed to move quickly. He responded with a confident smile and surged forward like a missile. Rocks and cliffs blurred past as he raced toward the canyons. But just as he neared, the owl stopped abruptly. The air shifted. Instincts screaming, Qin Feng halted. Something wasn't right. He spotted a tree marked with strange symbols. Ordering the owl to investigate further, he discovered 2 more trees marked the same way, one 100 meters ahead, another to the left. With precision, he approached each tree and touched the symbols, channeling a trickle of energy into them. A radiant light flared to life, connecting the trees. The ground trembled. Then, without warning, a treasure chest surfaced, glowing with a mystical green aura. A rare treasure chest, left behind by the ancient gods. Qin Feng's heart pounded. Such treasures were as dangerous as they were valuable. Some summoned monster hordes. Others triggered cataclysms. But some, like this one, held unimaginable riches. Shui, watching through the owl's eyes, felt a surge of disbelief. That chest could be worth over 1,000 days of lifespan, or 10 million in real currency. Qin Feng admired her swift thinking. In his past life, a year of lifespan had started at 10,000, rising to 50,000 within 2 days. Ju studied the symbols with sharp interest, her eyes glinting with intelligence. She was already committing them to memory. Qin Feng's focus remained sharp as Shui's owl circled overhead, guiding them deeper into the canyons. The rocky landscape stretched out, jagged and unforgiving, but the faint movements of Song Fei and his dwindling group remained visible through the bird's keen eyes. Every step closer heightened the tension. Qin Feng felt the weight of countless days of tradable lifespan riding on this confrontation. The power balance was shifting irrevocably, and he intended to seize that momentum. Suddenly, the owl halted again, its sharp cry slicing through the silence. It had detected an ambush, trap signs hidden among the rocks. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes, signaling Shui to be cautious. The path ahead was littered with danger, but retreat was not an option. Carefully, they navigated the treacherous terrain, moving silently as shadows stretched long beneath the canyon walls. The air grew heavier, charged with anticipation. Somewhere ahead, Song Fei's group prepared for battle, unaware that their pursuers had already closed in. Qin Feng allowed himself a faint smile. The thrill of the hunt was intoxicating. The game was no longer just about survival. It was about dominion. With the owl leading the way, they approached the hidden encampment. Zhue's scanning ability detected the faint pulse of magical energy surrounding Song Fei's followers, weak, but enough to alert Qin Feng to their desperation. He glanced at Xue, who nodded in silent understanding. The final showdown was imminent. As they prepared to strike, Qin Feng's mind raced through his options. His skills, his arsenal, and the sheer will that had brought him this far. This was the moment where strategy and power collided. The canyon echoed with the first clash of steel and magic, the battle unfolding beneath the watchful eyes of ancient stones and the piercing gaze of a lone owl. There was no way to know what other secrets the symbols might hold. With a smirk, Qin Feng opened the chest to reveal a skill book emanating a dark, forbidding aura. The book contained the Curse of the Blossoms, an emerald-level ability with terrifying power. This skill caused cursed flowers to sprout from a defeated enemy, draining their tradable lifespan completely. Qin Feng's eyes narrowed as memories from his past life surfaced. Every enemy defeated could turn into an advantage. If he defeated Song Fei again and kept watch over his body for a moment, he could drain him dry. A sinister smile crept across his face. This time, Song Fei would not simply be defeated. Prepared and resolute, Qin Feng moved to confront his target. Song Fei stood confidently, waiting to deliver the final blow on the boss. His loyal fans gathered around him, eager to claim the kill. While Song Fei basked in the illusion of victory, the boss neared death. But before it could fall, a sudden disturbance sparked a reaction among his followers. One of the heavier girls among the fans spotted another group fighting a different boss. Anger flared as she identified rival fans trying to undermine Song Fei's reputation. Without hesitation, Song Fei's followers sprang into action. The rival group, mistaking them for allies, greeted them but were quickly silenced when the heavier girl struck their leader down with a single swing of her staff, leaving the others stunned. Song Fei's fans then erupted into a wild frenzy, chanting strange poems and hailing him as their god. With the rival group defeated, Song Fei took center stage, spinning a web of lies and fake gratitude, praising his fans as the true heroes. Their devotion was absolute, though tragically misguided. As the final blow landed on the boss, Qin Feng appeared at the canyon's edge like a dark shadow. Song Fei sensed danger. A chill ran down his spine, and instinct screamed warnings. But it was too late. Before he could turn, Qin Feng's sword struck swiftly and lethally. Song Fei's head fell, and his body slumped to the ground. His fans, shocked and frozen, watched in horror. Qin Feng knelt beside the body, activating the Curse of the Blossoms. A massive red flower erupted from Song Fei's chest, its petals writhing as they drained his tradable lifespan to zero. The fangirls remained paralyzed, unable to grasp what was happening. Qin Feng finished siphoning the last of Song Fei's lifespan, his expression cold and calculating. Back in Firefly Town, Song Fei respawned, confused and annoyed. He wondered why Shadow was always targeting him, suspecting jealousy over the attention he received from his fans. Convinced Shadow's attacks were part of some complicated revenge scheme beyond his understanding, Songfei struggled to make sense of it. Suddenly, a system alert warned that his tradable lifespan was decreasing rapidly. Panic set in as he realized the lifespan he had painstakingly accumulated was slipping away faster than ever. He initially believed it was a penalty for dying too many times, but before fully grasping the situation, his fan club arrived at the portal. Among them, the heavier mage girl reported breathlessly that a creepy red flower had sprouted from Songfei's body, draining something vital. The truth hit him hard. The cursed flower was Shadow's doing, the source of the draining lifespan. His fists clenched in anger. This was no coincidence. He commanded his fans to log off immediately to avoid further loss. They obeyed, enchanted by his leadership. Songfei, maintaining his role as their leader, assured them they were a family and promised that they would return stronger after stepping into the real world to extend their lifespan and acquire new gear, purchased with the saved lifespan. His followers eagerly nodded, caught in his vision of a grand comeback. But as Songfei logged off, anger and frustration twisted his face. He refused to lose after 2.5 years of building his empire. He vowed not to be taken down by an unknown player. With enough money, he believed he could crush any obstacle. He only needed time. At the canyon, red flowers bloomed in abundance, growing from the bodies of fallen players and silently siphoning their tradable lifespan. Shadow appeared unfazed. His relentless attacks had boosted his rank to level 4 as a killer. The tradable lifespan lost upon death now stood at an astounding 96.88%. Shadow felt no remorse. The surprise attack had granted him nearly 1,000 days of tradable lifespan, all thanks to Songfei and his misguided followers who had done the hard work defeating monsters only to feed him their gains. However, the bounty did not last. The flowers slowly withered, and the energy stopped flowing. Shadow immediately understood the players had logged off to protect what remained of their lifespan. From his vantage point, the white owl continued to soar silently, watching the scene unfold. Shui, behind the owl, had witnessed the entire exchange and was momentarily taken aback by such a powerful display of strength. Seeing what a top player could truly do was eye-opening. Shadow asked her calmly whether Songfei had really logged off. The response confirmed that the entire group had vanished to save their remaining time. Satisfied, Shadow instructed her to keep an eye on them and report any return. As Jui pondered if her task was complete, Shadow casually mentioned acquiring a golden tier priest skill, Divine Judgment, and proposed a trade. Jue's eyes lit up in genuine interest at the mention of the Sword of Divine Judgment. Shadow offered the skill in exchange for 500 days of lifespan, but promised to cut the price in half if Zhu agreed to join his team as their main healer. Suspicious, Zhu firmly declined to trade dignity, surprising Shadow, who quickly clarified his true intention. Relief washed over Xue, who agreed to the deal with the caveat of holding Shadow responsible if the team turned out to be a disaster. Shadow smiled confidently and contacted his team, eager to add a powerful new player. Meanwhile, in another part of the game world, Wang Meng stood tall after defeating a poisonous monster. The experience points were welcome, but the poison coursing through his veins required urgent healing. He called for Xiao Yu, Qinfeng's sister, to heal him and bring an antidote. Xiao Yu froze, unsure how to respond. Despite repeated reminders that as a priest she could remove toxins, she accidentally cast the healing skill on a tree instead. The poison spread, and Wang Meng collapsed, before he could recover. His hard-earned victory was wasted. The team stood around him in disbelief, frustration mounting over Xiao Yu's ineffectiveness despite her priest class. Later, the team leader faced a difficult decision. Xiao Yu was proving a liability, and finding another skilled, hidden-class priest would not be easy. Every healer with a powerful class had already been claimed. Meanwhile, Xiao Yu remained blissfully unaware of her failure, lost in fantasies of grandeur. She believed her rapid leveling was proof of a destined greatness. She dreamed of joining Song Fei, imagining their combined rise to glory. Yet while she drifted in her own world, a system alert reached Wang Meng, filling him with excitement. A hidden class healer, the Whitebird Priest, someone with unmatched healing powers, had agreed to join their team. The path forward had suddenly become clear. Xiao Yu had always been strong in other roles, but this was the opportunity the team had long awaited. As Wang Meng planned to bring the new healer in, he turned to Shadow for her location. Shadow confirmed she was in Firefly Town. Not the ideal place to level up, but important enough to meet and get the team moving. Wang Meng agreed and began preparations. Before they left, he had to address the ongoing issue with Xiao Yu. He approached her carefully, choosing words that would spare her feelings while making his point. The group was heading to a higher-level zone. Shell Town was too crowded, and growth demanded moving on. He framed it as though Xiao Yu's low level alone was the issue, a subtle way to signal that her lack of usefulness as a healer had become a liability. Before she could respond, the team took off without hesitation, clearly relieved to leave behind a healer yet to prove herself. Xiao Yu, however, remained unfazed. She viewed their departure as a blessing, convinced they were not strong enough for her anyway. Her plan was to find Shadow and enlist his help to level up faster, determined to prove them all wrong. Meanwhile, Wang Meng arrived in Firefly Town and quickly located Shadow and the others. Without wasting time, he handed over the lifespan earned from their last battle, ready to finalize the deal and move forward with the new team formation. As they gathered, Wang Meng could feel the weight of how difficult the game was becoming. Plans were in motion, but new allies were urgently needed. He mentioned a captain named Anyu, a name that caused Shadow to freeze, his mind racing. This was no random figure. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as Anyu appeared, greeting them with a cheerful wave. She stood before them, a commanding presence that instantly drew attention from both men. Shadow remained motionless, disbelief written across his face. Anyu was none other than Justice Execution, the only player in the game with the coveted Dragon Swordsman hidden class. In Shadow's previous life, Anyu ranked among the world's top 20 players, a national hero and key figure within the country's official forces. She was revered and feared, a force of nature. Now, standing before him, she radiated confidence and looked at Shadow with genuine admiration. Introducing herself as Anyu, she smiled warmly and admitted being in awe of Shadow's rapid rise. Half-jokingly, she wondered if he was a time traveler or reincarnated hero, given how fast he advanced. Shadow remained silent, his mind flooded with memories of their past encounters under far darker circumstances. Back then, she had not been part of Wang Meng's team. This early meeting came as a complete surprise. Anyu likely possessed a significant amount of tradable lifespan, probably acquired through official government-backed channels. As a dragon swordsman known for strength and resilience, she was a natural choice to wield such power. Shadow respected the government's wisdom and the choice they made. Always straightforward, Anyu got to the point. If they had gear to sell, her group was interested. Her voice was sweet, but carried an undeniable authority. The responsibility of her city rested on her shoulders, and wise decisions were essential. Shadow recognized the unspoken agreement between them. Opposing her would be futile. Both understood the rule of mutual benefit. Shadow agreed, acknowledging it would be foolish to pass up such a lucrative deal. Though Anyu appeared cheerful and approachable, Qinfeng knew better. Beneath the friendly exterior was a woman as formidable as she was calculating. No ordinary ally. The scene shifted to the real world. Inside a building, a young girl sat on her bed, clutching her phone, her face a portrait of shock as she listened intently to a conversation on the other end. Her voice broke through the tension with disbelief and alarm. The official announcement was out. Lifespan in the cursed game was real, and if it reached 0, death would come in the real world. She struggled to believe what she was hearing, words spilling from her as though from a nightmare. Another girl on the call, furious now, shouted back in disbelief. This wasn't just a game. She had given all her tradable lifespan to Song Fei. Panic gripped her chest as reality sank in. A third voice, quieter but filled with sorrow, confessed to having only a few years of lifespan left. She had killed many players, earned killer status, but each death cost her 2 days of lifespan. Regret weighed heavily on her. A fourth girl, annoyed and trying to make sense of it all, interrupted. That couldn't be right. She had died only 3 times. If the others were losing that much, then she must have only a few years left as well. The chubby girl holding her phone stared in disbelief, her voice strained and panicked. As a tank mage, she charged in first and died often. Now only 1 day of lifespan remained. Shaking her head, her thoughts raced. This couldn't be real. She refused to accept it. Just then, her phone chimed with a new message. Her face lit up. Song Fei was buying lifespans. Excitement replaced her fear. This was perfect. She would find him. He would help her. Hope surged as she jumped out of bed, scrambling to change. She wanted to wear Song Fei's support outfit all over her body, and she had to hear his new song. Grabbing a red dress emblazoned with his face, she slipped it on quickly. Song Fei, here she came. Fire in her step. Meanwhile, Qinfeng's sister woke, her mind still fogged by the game's haze. She wondered if she was truly back in the real world as she reached for her phone. Fingers swiped across the screen, and a smirk spread across her face. 15,000 yuan for just 1 day of lifespan, she mused aloud, eyes scanning the numbers. With 200 days saved, she was practically a millionaire. Excitement bubbled, but then her face froze. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she read shocking news. Shadow was massacring Song Fei and had killed him 3 times already. Panic flooded her voice as she read more. How could this happen? Hands trembling, tears welled up. They had warned her that if their lifespan hit 0, death in the real world would follow. Her voice broke with grief, chest tight as the cruel truth sank in. Even if Song Fei retained a non-tradable lifespan of 100 years, after dying 3 times, he was left with only 12. Overwhelmed, she sobbed, struggling to understand why Shadow wanted him dead. A new message flashed from the chubby girl. Song Fei needed their help. Sisters in Zhanghai City could sell tradable lifespan at Dazhong Plaza, the exchange rate generous enough to make them rich while aiding him. Heart racing, she leapt from bed, determination solidifying. She couldn't sit idle while his lifespan slipped away. With over 200 days saved, she vowed to help. The scene shifted to the beach, once peaceful, but now a battlefield. A lobster monster lay shattered on the sand, defeated by Shadow, who had just decimated a horde of monsters. His sword sliced through the air with deadly precision, every movement fluid and relentless. He fought not just to survive, but to level up, to climb higher in the unforgiving game. After hours of battle, the last creature fell at his feet. A glowing system notification appeared. Shadow reached level 10. Energy surged through him, a powerful aura radiating from every cell. This level up marked more than progress. It was a milestone in his journey. Another notification followed. 4-dimensional attributes increased by 2, free attribute points granted, and career advancement unlocked. A third message proclaimed Shadow as the first player to reach level 10 globally, earning him significant reputation points. However, he can only leave his initial town when 7 level 10 players are gathered in the town. This would trigger the teleportation to the abandoned continent of the gods. His mind raced. He was the first in the world to reach level 10. Yet excitement was fleeting. More challenges awaited. He needed to grow stronger, to push forward. The game was far from over. In the town square, players froze as the global announcement echoed. Disbelief rippled through the crowd. Near the fountain, a player whispered in awe. Shadow was the first to kill at gold level, and now the first to reach level 10 worldwide. Whispers swelled, voices marveling at his power, and ruthless kills of the idol Song Fei. Some scorned Song Fei, deeming him no match for Shadow. Elsewhere, a ninja-like player frowned, baffled by Shadow's dominance, questioning how one from Dao could be so far ahead. A smith nearby grumbled in frustration, his hidden profession only level 8. With 1.5 billion players in Tianju, how could no one catch up? Back on the beach, waves crashed in the distance. Shadow's focus sharpened as notifications continued. He had consumed all 13 evolution points, upgrading his backstab enhancement from platinum to emerald rank, boosting damage from 40 to 50% when striking from behind. His skills evolved rapidly, mirroring his rise. But it wasn't just stats that occupied him. It was control, domination on his terms. He reviewed his stats. Codename Shadow, Class Shadow. The only hidden profession, level 10. Non-tradable lifespan at 1,019 years and 128 days. Tradable lifespan, 7,455 days. Strength and constitution at 39. Agility at a remarkable 111. Spirit 41. Prestige 47. The teleportation to the abandoned continent required 7 level 10 players. He was alone at the summit. He gazed at the horizon, calm and resolute, ready to return to reality and settle unfinished business. Back in the real world, Shadow lay still in bed, eyes closed. His mind hovered between game and reality until his eyes snapped open, glowing yellow with power. A system prompt appears, asking him to consume tradable lifespan to extract abilities into reality. Without hesitation, he agreed. Blue energy enveloped him as he extracted his shadow class, consuming 1,000 days of life. Passive effects boosted strength, constitution, agility, and spirit. The decision to extract level 2 followed swiftly, costing 2,000 days and instantly raising his real-world level to 3, with further stat boosts. Energy surged through every muscle, fueling newfound confidence. Next came skill extractions. Shadow Step, Platinum Tier, and Venomous Dagger, Silver Tier, consumed at 900 and 2,262 days respectively. These skills enhanced his control and lethality, empowering him further. Yet anger simmered beneath his satisfaction, fueled by memories of Song Fei, the fool who had humiliated him. His base stats are now twice that of an average person. Agility far beyond human limits. Shadow was ready. The moment to end Song Fei had arrived. Before moving, he checked Song Fei's activities. The idol was aggressively buying lifespan from followers at Dajong Plaza, 7 or 8 kilometers away. At his speed, Shadow could arrive in just over 10 minutes. As he prepared to leave, a message from Hu Chibin, the arrogant company supervisor, arrived, her fury unmistakable. Shadow understood exactly what was happening. After his rise in power, he had become a target for her and the company, but he didn't care. Hu Chibin was irrelevant. He blocked her message, tossed his phone aside, and activated stealth. He knew the true nature of the forsaken game of gods, a truth the outside world couldn't grasp. They were too far behind. Now it was his turn to show them. Hours later, Dajang Square pulsed with life and energy. A crowd of girls chanted for Song Fei during his concert. His stage presence was magnetic, but the darker deeds lurking behind the scenes remained hidden. Among the crowd, Qinfeng's sister watched, heart racing, as Song Fei smiled beside Jiang Li. Their whispered conversation drifted to her ears. Jiang Li warned that Shadow had killed Song Fei 3 times and assured that investigators had been sent to uncover Shadow's identity. Once Shadow came to the real world for payment, they would capture him, and Song Fei would finally get his revenge. A wicked smile spread across Song Fei's face. This was the moment he had waited for. Meanwhile, a man in the audience shouted over the music, demanding Song Fei stop recklessly buying lifespan from his fans. Lifespan was tied to life and death, and brainwashing fans to sell it endangered them all. Song Fei dismissed the interruption smoothly, claiming his fans supported him out of love. They wanted the best for him, and he wanted the best for them. The crowd erupted in applause, swallowing every word. Song Fei's smile was genuine, but veiled a poisonous intent. He addressed the crowd with trembling sincerity, urging rational love and support for idols to ensure personal safety. They must work together to spread positive energy and contribute to society. As he spoke, tears fell freely. He claimed cooperation with authorities and efforts to be a role model by using his wealth to buy lifespan, hoping to give back to his fans and build a better future beyond the game. The crowd hung on every word, moved to tears, and ready to support him unquestioningly. When a woman in the audience lashed out at the man who had spoken against Song Fei, calling him a savage, the tension erupted. The chubby girl jumped on stage, denouncing outside rumors as lies and proclaiming her willingness to die for Song Fei. She declared that if they couldn't stand by him, they didn't deserve to say they loved him. Her words sparked the crowd into a fervor, fans screaming their devotion, ready to sacrifice even their lifespan. Song Fei extended his hand to the girl, gratitude soft in his voice. Overwhelmed, she burst into tears, declaring her devotion. Then, without warning, a dart flew through the air and struck Song Fei in the head. No one saw its origin. Time froze as blood trickled from his mouth, his body collapsing with finality. Horror swept through the crowd. The chubby girl stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief as his body crashed at her feet, blood spilling everywhere. She screamed, unable to comprehend the sudden death. Panic erupted as fans rushed to his side, but it was too late. Guards scrambled, trying to restore order amid chaos. They quickly escorted the chubby girl to safety. The company's supervisor moved through the crowd with tears in her eyes, escaping in disbelief. Her mind raced as she cried out that Song Fei's body had been surrounded by an orb of lifespan at death. This was no accident. Someone had used a skill from the game. Her voice trembled with fear as the horrifying possibility dawned. Could skills from the game be used in real life? The grim answer crystallized in her mind. Shadow. The one person capable of such a feat. The killer. The shadow behind the chaos. As she fled toward her car, another dart pierced her skull. She collapsed instantly, dead before she could react. The stunned guards could only watch, frozen in horror. The crowd fell silent, shocked and unsure what had just transpired. Among them, Shadow stood tall, eyes glowing with bloodlust and raw energy, sparks radiating from him. Stealth still active, he had made his move. From this moment on, nothing would ever be the same. The sun rose over the city, casting a warm glow across the landscape as birds soared above. The peaceful morning stood in stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded the day before. News broadcasts flickered across screens, announcing the tragic death of Song Fei in Dajiang Square. Reports revealed that his extremist fans had sacrificed their lifespans in a desperate offering to their beloved idol. The anchor continued, confirming that Song Fei's cause of death had been classified as supernatural, an unsettling revelation that sent waves of disbelief through the city. Inside a moving car, Xiaoyu and her friends sat in stunned silence. The air was heavy with grief. Both girls were glued to their phones, struggling to process the reality. Xiaoyu's fingers trembled as she scrolled through the breaking news. Tears welled in her eyes, her voice no louder than a breath as she tried to comprehend what had happened. They had just been watching Song Fei's concert the day before, and now he was gone. Her voice cracked as she spoke, her world unraveling. Her friend, equally shaken, turned to her with wide eyes. She referenced the abilities, throwing knives, stealth. Those were powers from the godforsaken game. Panic colored her voice as she asked if someone had assassinated Song Fei. Rumors swirled that a player named Shadow had already killed him 3 times in the game. Xiaoyu's gaze remained fixed on her screen, her face frozen in disbelief. Her mind raced as understanding began to creep in. Her friend hesitated, confusion lining her expression. How could powers from the game appear in real life? The question hung unanswered in the thick silence. Xiaoyu didn't respond immediately. Her heart pounded. The pieces began to align in her mind. Shadow. He was the only one capable of something like this. Assassination, cloaking, throwing knives. These were assassin skills. The realization hit her with crushing force. Song Fei had been murdered, and Shadow was the culprit. A grim determination settled into her bones. Shadow had done it. He was the only one who could have carried out such a deed in the real world. As the cab carried them through the city, Xiaoyu's thoughts spiraled, a dark vow taking root. Her world had lost its light, but she would change that. She would get closer to Shadow. She would become stronger, no matter the cost. The cab came to a stop, and Xiaoyu stepped out, her movements slow and uncertain, as if in a trance. Her friend placed a hand on her shoulder, voice low and concerned, noting how frightening Xiaoyu looked. But Xiaoyu didn't hear her. A vow had been made. From that moment on, her only goal was to kill Shadow. She would avenge Brother Songfei's death. Her expression tightened as she broke down, the weight of her conviction pressing heavily on her. Her friend watched her, anxiety etched across her face. But the world had already shifted for Xiaoyu. Her heart now beat for vengeance. Elsewhere, Qinfeng enjoyed a hearty meal. His expression was calm, savoring each bite. The chaos of the world outside felt distant, drowned beneath the quiet satisfaction of a well-earned rest after endless grinding in the godforsaken game. As he chewed thoughtfully, his mind wandered. It was clear to him that being invincible in real life did not grant invincibility in the game. Playing consumes energy. Hunger still demanded food. Just as this thought passed, his phone vibrated on the table, snapping him from his reverie. He picked up the device and read the message. Hu Qibin was apparently furious that his number had been blocked on WeChat. The message threatened that, if Qinfeng didn't show up soon, he would lose his salary for the month. The sender was Yang Xiaoya, accompanied by a string of laughing emojis. Qinfeng chuckled. Yang Xiaoya had always been the laid-back, yet often bullied member of their former team. He remembered her well, once a crucial ally from the God Slayer Guild. She had been reliable, always there when needed. Shaking his head with amusement, Qinfeng quickly typed his reply. He told her not to bother with Hu Qibin, that showing up to work was pointless. He urged her to log into the game instead so they could grind. The words were simple, but they carried the familiar bond of shared battles and memories. Not long after, her reply came through. She commented on having entered the difficult and punishing game, mentioning that many players had already lost their lifespan. She asked how things were going. Qinfeng smirked as he typed his response. He advised her not to overthink things and to invest all her points into agility from the start, regardless of the profession she chose. Her response came almost immediately. She wanted to know how the grind was progressing and how much he had earned. He replied casually, admitting he hadn't earned much, but had already spent everything. Her laughter could be imagined through the screen, her teasing message pointing out that it was no wonder he had blocked Hu Qibin. Qinfeng smiled, but his thoughts quickly returned to the game. There was still much to be done. Qinfeng leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at his lips as he scrolled through his phone. The memory of Hu Qibin brought a brief smirk, but his real concern lay elsewhere. Qin Shi, daughter of the CEO of Qian Group, posed a far greater threat. The Qian Group, his former employer, had always been a burden, but it was Qian Shishi who had made his life unbearable. Known for her domineering nature, she had built a reputation by trampling over those beneath her and sparing no one who dared defy her. Now her attention seemed to have turned toward him. He remembered her tendency to idolize foreigners while ignoring her homeland. And after the launch of the cursed game, she had abandoned Daxia to pursue dreams with the Alice in Wonderland Association, an ironic contrast to her previous nationalist facade. In his past life, she had been a constant thorn in the side of Daxia and the God-slaying guild. Now, her ambitions are threatened even more. She would not leave the country this time. He would ensure it. Her death, he thought grimly, would bring down the entire association. If the rumors were true, and the men around her were entangled with her, her fall would collapse their house of cards. Just as the thought settled, his phone vibrated. His sister, Xiao Yu, was calling. He rolled his eyes and answered without enthusiasm. Her voice rang out, sharp and annoyed, questioning if he still remembered how to pick up a phone, and sarcastically wondering if he had died in the game. He offered no response to her jabs, only a cold dismissal. If she had nothing else to say, he intended to end the call. But Xiao Yu wasn't finished. Her voice, now filled with anger, warned him never to contact her again. She wanted nothing more to do with him. Fine, he muttered, ending the call and slipping his phone into his pocket. He stepped out of the restaurant into the city streets, the fading sun casting a warm glow over the skyline. For a moment, the world seemed quiet, but peace would not last. His mind returned to the game, to unfinished business. He needed to level up. Soon players would reach level 10, and with it, they would discover that abilities could be brought into the real world. No one was ready for the storm to come. Back within the confines of the cursed game, Xiaoyu and her friend strolled through a bustling game town street. Her friend, visibly concerned, questioned whether cutting ties with Chen Feng had been the right choice. Maybe it was time to apologize. After all, he seemed genuinely upset. Xiaoyu crossed her arms, a smirk forming as her eyes locked on the ground. There was no room for apologies. She had sold her lifespan to the Chen Group for 2 million and used the money to buy a house. She no longer needed her brother. Her focus was on Shadow now. Her friend's jaw dropped in disbelief. The idea of selling one's lifespan for money was shocking. Xiao Yu, with a cold and confident expression, explained that with the funds, she was set for life. Her only concern was getting close to Shadow. Chen Feng, and anyone else, had become irrelevant. Just then, a classmate approached, offering her a skill book with a knowing smirk. It was the assassin's ability she had asked for. As he handed it over, he reminded her of the promise she had made. Xiao Yu's eyes gleamed with anticipation as she accepted the book, her voice light with excitement and feigned gratitude. But inwardly, her thoughts were dismissive and calculating. The classmate, like many others, was expendable. She hurried down the street, clutching the assassin's skill book. A bubbling excitement threatened to spill over as she called Wang Meng. Her tone was sweet, almost playful, as she asked if Shadow might need the book. If so, she would gladly give it to him for free. But beneath the cheer, her mind was already scheming. Zhang Wei, ever the useful lackey, had brought her just what she needed. The skill book would be her ticket to Shadow. She imagined herself beside him, healing him, clearing enemies with him, leveling together. She would make him feel cared for, make him rely on her, perhaps even come to love her. And when the time came, when his usefulness had run its course, she would kill him herself. She would scoop out his eyes and avenge Song Fei. Her dark thoughts were interrupted by a message from Wang Meng. Big Boss had dismissed the skill as worthless. Shadow wouldn't need it. She was advised to sell it for cash or keep it for herself. Her expression faltered. The rejection hit hard. She had been so close. Frustration clenched at her chest as she stared at the phone. Meanwhile, deep within the godforsaken game, Shadow was on the move. His hunt for stronger, more challenging foes drove him deeper into the wilderness. The shouts of other players nearby piqued his interest. Activating his stealth skill, he melted into the landscape, moving silently toward the source of the commotion. From the shadows, he observed a group of players struggling against a monstrous boss. The creature, a golden arthropod, was a terrifying hybrid of insect and humanoid. Its massive, red-armored body bristled with weapons and menace. The players were clearly overmatched. One of them, a tank, shouted in panic, acknowledging that this was no ordinary boss. Desperation gripped him as the creature locked eyes on its target, and he fled, screaming. The hunt had begun. Before he could even brace himself, the golden arthropod charged with terrifying force. It slammed into him, its attack slicing through the tank and his shield, leaving nothing but carnage in its wake. Shadow recognized the boss immediately. The golden arthropod, level 8, and equipped with an anti-stealth ability. This wouldn't be easy. His thoughts raced as he watched the monster wreak havoc. With a level 2 anti-stealth, his usual tactics would be ineffective. He would need to be smart. The golden arthropod roared, stomping the ground as it glared at the players still struggling to engage it. Shadow spotted an opening, a fleeting moment when the creature's attention was divided. Without hesitation, he sprang into action, drawing his dagger with swift precision. Focusing on his agility and stealth, he closed the distance in a flash and struck the golden arthropod multiple times with instant shadow slash. Damage numbers exploded in his mind's eye, 3,042 points, then 1,300. The beast staggered and let out a roar of pain. Its fury surged, but Shadow remained calm. Striking from the shadows would optimize his damage output, but if the monster saw through his invisibility, the consequences would be severe. The golden arthropod had learned to pierce through invisibility. If that happened, his damage would be halved. Then something clicked in his mind. Thanks to divine salvation, he could now target weak points, the head and heart, for 200% more damage. The system confirmed it. 3 of his strikes had landed on weak points, compensating for the loss in damage. Shadow's mind raced as he analyzed the battle, watching the golden arthropod stagger from the previous blows. The damage had been substantial, but still not enough. It truly was a legendary skill. He owed Plum for that. From behind a large rock, the girl who had purchased the skill book from him earlier watched the fight unfold with wide eyes. Her heart pounded as she took in the scene, filled with disbelief. Shadow's damage was off the charts. 1 slash had dropped the golden arthropod's health by a 1/6. She had seen it all, the precision of his strikes, the sheer force behind his abilities, and he didn't stop there. With the flick of his wrist, he launched a poison dart. The blade cut through the air with terrifying speed and struck the golden arthropod in its massive eye. The beast roared in agony as poison seeped through its veins. The system log displayed 1,785 points of damage, but Shadow was already processing the outcome. A silver rank poison dart. Not bad, but not nearly as effective as he needed. He would have to level up his profession. He needed a higher stealth level. As he focused on the boss, he failed to notice the creature's multiple arms reaching behind him, closing in like a trap. Realization hit too late. The golden arthropod was upon him, its massive limbs surrounding him from all sides. With a thunderous roar, it raised its weapons for a deadly strike. A player across the battlefield shouted at Shadow to watch out. But Shadow was already ahead of the game. His reaction time was nearly flawless. As the boss's weapons swung from every direction, he slipped and weaved with precise agility, dodging each blow with the grace of a seasoned fighter. His movements were so fast, so fluid, that the other players couldn't help but stop and stare. One player whispered in awe, wondering how anyone could move like that. The woman beside him shook her head in disbelief. It wasn't just speed. His reactions were insane, as though he could predict the boss's moves before they happened. The players watched in stunned silence, eyes locked on Shadow's every movement. His speed was almost on par with the boss, but what truly stunned them was his timing. He knew exactly when to dodge, as if reading the monster's mind. Shadow continued evading. Every attack from the golden arthropod missed him by mere inches. He had fought this boss more times than he could count. His expression hardened as he observed the creature's patterns. In his previous life, he and Xiaoyu had never been able to defeat it, but now he understood that no amount of brute force would win here. This boss demanded rhythm. It required feeling the flow of its attacks. A fierce bloodlust gleamed in his yellow eyes. That was why he ranked among the top 100 assassins in the world. With a confident motion, he countered. Shadow's instant shadow slash tore through the air, striking the golden arthropod again and again with devastating force. The monster staggered backward, its health nearly depleted. Only a single point of HP remained. Once proud and fearsome, it now turned to flee, its massive form lumbering away from the relentless assault. Shadow observed the retreat with contempt. Compared to formidable bosses like the Golden Ghost ship, this creature was insignificant. Nearby, a female player who had watched the battle unfold remained frozen in disbelief. The golden arthropod, once dominant, was now fleeing from a solo attacker. Shadow's focus never wavered. The creature would not escape, not after the struggle and progress made. He summoned his dagger, tightened his grip, and charged. High-speed momentum propelled his form like lightning, cutting through the air. With precision and force, he lunged forward. The blade struck cleanly, severing the arthropod's head from its body. The decapitated mass dropped with a sickening thud, and the lifeless body collapsed. A system notification confirmed the kill. Shadow had defeated the golden arthropod, level 8. He received 6,400 experience points, 7 evolution points, and 497 days of tradable lifespan. The familiar surge of victorious energy flowed through him. Another notification followed, triggered by his greedy hand skill. The reward was duplicated, another 7 evolution points, and an additional 497 days of tradable lifespan. 28 evolution points gained from a single golden tier boss. The efficiency was beyond expectations. Shadow immediately reviewed the results, already considering how to leverage the rewards. A new system message appeared, describing a newly acquired skill. Blacklight Shield, Platinum rank. This assassin-based ability converted the user's dodge rate into a damage-immune shield lasting 8 seconds. Afterward, the dodge rate would return to normal. The cooldown period was set at 60 seconds. Shadow examined the skill's potential. Combined with the 75% evasion rate from his ghostly blur ability, this shield granted 3 layers of damage reduction. With this enhancement, boss encounters would become significantly less dangerous. Without hesitation, he initiated the skill's evolution. 6 evolution points were consumed, and the Blacklight Shield upgraded to Epic rank. The duration increased from 12 to 14 seconds. For every 20% evasion, 1 layer of damage reduction was added. Energy surged through Shadow's system. A bright yellow glow surrounded him as the power integrated. With his current stats, he now possessed 7 layers of damage reduction. This level of defense allowed him to explore high-level areas earlier than intended. Shadow continued optimizing his build. His next target was the Poisonous Dart skill. 16 evolution points were allocated to upgrade the skill from Silver to Emerald rank. The attack range increased to 17 meters, and its damage climbed to 240 with 80% continuous damage over 5 seconds. The enhancements aligned perfectly with his strategy. With a 5-second cooldown, the Poisonous Dart now rivaled Shadow Slash in overall damage output. Shadow turned to the loot. 2 pieces of assassin-type gear had dropped from the golden arthropod. He equipped them without delay. The first, City of Lightness, was a gold rank item granting plus 20 agility and plus 20% movement speed. The second, Heavy Crimson Leather Gloves, also gold rank, increased physical defense by 18, all elemental resistances by 15, constitution by 12, and HP by 588. With the equipment in place, Shadow felt his stats rise. Fire resistance alone had improved by 55%. His durability and offensive capabilities had reached new heights. The Blacklight Shield now formed a core part of his survival strategy, and the gear synergized seamlessly. 2 nearby players, who had witnessed the battle, approached him with visible admiration. One of them, the same female observer from earlier, acknowledged his solo defeat of the golden arthropod and inquired whether he had any powerful skill books for sale. Shadow produced a golden skill book from his inventory and offered it. It was Frost Ejection, a basic group mage skill that released an ice ball capable of bouncing 10 times. The price was 800 days of lifespan. Though the cost drew surprise, Shadow remained firm. The skill was level 7 and provided a 40% damage boost upon upgrade. The value was justified. After a moment of hesitation, the female player accepted the terms. The system confirmed the trade. The skill book was transferred, and Shadow received 800 days of tradable lifespan. He turned and walked away. Plans formed in his mind. He would spread word in the nearby town, gather information on boss spawns, and locate golden-level creatures. The more bosses he hunted, the faster his growth would accelerate. Just as his strategy solidified, his phone buzzed with a message from Wang Meng. Xiao Yu had requested contact and wanted to give him a skill book. The message raised suspicion. Shadow considered the timing. Rumors were already circulating about Song Fei's death, and now a skill book was being offered. He responded coldly, declining the offer and suggesting they keep the so-called gift. Shadow did not trust the intention. Whether it was an attempt to curry favor or seek revenge, he wasn't interested. Moments later, Wang Meng relayed Shadow's rejection to Xiao Yu. Still moving, Shadow contacted Wang Meng again and instructed him to come to town, bringing his tradable lifespan for a transaction.